1. Fantastic Beasts Cube. On July 1st, 1991, a super hurricane, a once-in-a-century storm, swept across the entire western coast of the Balkan Peninsula. Gale-force wind and torrential rain howled. Fist-sized hail pounded branches and rocks with dull thuds. Trees were uprooted, shattered rocks and mud tumbled into the swollen rivers and were carried out to the Ionian Sea. 3 days later, the hurricane drifted toward the Mediterranean. The winds subsided and the Western Balkans slowly cleared. Robin woke to dazzling sunlight as the storm finally passed. Hiss! He rubbed a pounding temple and took in the stone nest around him, a shallow hollow built from countless stacked shards of rock. Where am I? Wasn't I crossing a traffic light? Had I been in a car crash and somehow thrown into some desolate mountain? Where's my phone? He tried to stand, but an overwhelming, tide-like headache slammed him back. Deep inside his mind, a white door seemed to be opening, and when it opened fully, a flurry of memory fragments poured out like snowflakes, flashing through him. Robin instinctively flipped the sky the bird and swore in an impressive, very human way. I graduated from a 211 university. I just got an offer from Tencent, and right when my life was turning around, you hit me with transmigration? If I had to transmigrate, couldn't it have been yesterday? I paid my quarterly rent last night and a deposit for next month. Do you know what 4,800 yuan is? Do you know how many flyers I handed out doing part-time jobs to scrape that together? A sudden clap of thunder on a clear day made him jerk his hand away mid-gesture. He looked around, half expecting a vengeful little angel with wings to be hiding in a crack in the rocks. After all, this was a magic world. Robin had indeed transmigrated. Coincidentally, the original owner of the body was also named Robin, Robin Lestrange, born June 1980 in Cornwall, England. His parents were magical creature researchers. By the time he was 11, he still hadn't shown any magic. The Lestranges refused to accept their son was a squib and decided to gamble. They took him to the Balkans to hunt for the Borona divine herb, an ancient plant said to awaken latent magic. They didn't find the herb. They did find a super hurricane. While sheltering in the mountains, the couple were struck by flying debris and killed. Their bodies were swept away by a mountain torrent. The original Robin fell from his broomstick and partway down was caught by a white dragon with wings. His toes scraped across 7 or 8 green ridges before the dragon dumped him into a nest of stacked rock. Cold, drenched, frightened, and suddenly orphaned, he ran a fever and slipped into a coma. When he woke, the body was the same, but the soul inside was that of a brash young man from the 21st century, Robin. So that dusty, oval, jackfruit-sized thing in front of him was a dragon egg. Robin leaned closer to inspect the shell. Curved grooves like fish scales formed neat rows. It was warm and surprisingly smooth. A faint, earthy scent rose from it. He grinned. "Little dragon, your mother killed the original owner, so you owe me. No, the mother's debt will be repaid by the child. You'll be my little black market laborer forever." A dragon, a flying dragon. Which Chunibu teenager hadn't fantasized about soaring through the sky on a dragon's back? The chance was right there, and Robin couldn't resist. He reached out and hugged the egg. Heave-ho! Heave-ho! He pulled as hard as he could. His hand slipped. Crunch! Momentum pitched him back, then forward, and his front teeth slammed into the egg. Hiss! That hurts. He felt with a hand. No chips, no cracks. Good. If his front teeth had gone, his looks would have dropped 0.05 points. Little dragon, did that hurt? Big brother didn't mean it. Once you hatch, if there's ever meat to eat, you'll get to smell it. See? I'm good to you. Hiss! Why does my left chest suddenly hurt so much? Could it be karma for bullying a dragon egg? The pain in his left chest flared and radiated outward. Sharp, thousand-awl stabs that left Robin's hair prickling and a cold sweat beading his forehead. He unbuttoned his collar and looked. Underneath, below his left collarbone, was a tiny Rubik's Cube totem the size of a fingernail. Neither he nor the original owner had ever been tattooed, used fake skin decals, or had any birthmarks. This had to be something brought by the transmigration. A golden finger? Curious and a little suspicious, Robin rubbed the totem. Circle, 2 circles. On the third turn, the tiny cube began to change as if an invisible hand were twisting it in midair. The 6 colored faces, red, orange, white, green, yellow, purple, spun and finally settled into a white field with a red cross. System? Spirit, old man, cosmic Tao, god, angel, elf? He rattled off every melodramatic name a protagonist's golden finger usually answered to, and waited 3 minutes. Nothing replied. He was about to rub again when the totem erupted in crimson light. The red beam arced like a small rainbow and struck the dusty dragon egg. Then, miraculously, the egg lifted a meter into the air on its own, water-like ripples flowing around it. It began to shrink rapidly. By the time it was the size of a mung bean, it condensed into a streak of red light and shot straight into the Rubik's Cube totem. At the same instant, Robin's consciousness was yanked into a vast white sea of mind space. Floating before him was a colossal Rubik's Cube, the size of a 3-story villa, slowly rotating. In one red square grid, a small egg hovered. He stepped closer, and his thoughts moved with him. The red grid detached from the giant cube, creaking as it drifted toward him, and a parchment scroll about 8 inches long floated alongside it. Robin swallowed his excitement, reached out, and unrolled the scroll. This divine artifact is named the Magical Creature Cultivation Rubik's Cube. It assists its owner in collecting, nurturing, healing, and evolving captured magical creatures. Level LV110. Instructions for use. 1. After defeating a magical creature, rub the external totem linked to a cube 3 times, or silently chant the incantation, Contain All, to activate the cube's grid storage. 2. When a magical creature is stored in the cube, 20% of its magic power and innate talent, after filtering, purification, and optimization, will automatically transfer into the owner's body. 3. Placing magical items, herbs, ores, devices, into the central axis grants cultivation points equal to their value, allowing the cube to upgrade from LV1 up to LV10. Putting collected magical items into a single grid greatly increases that grid's cultivation efficiency. 4. The Magical Beast Cultivation Cube unlocks new functions with each level. The number of grids and each grid's cultivation efficiency increase accordingly. 5. In battle, you can release creatures from the grids into reality by thought to tip the odds in your favor. Notes. 1. Each cultivation grid includes basic storage, feeding, healing, and evolution functions. 2. Magical creatures are ranked E, D, C, B, A, S, S, and SSS by magical strength and talent. 3. The cube has a built-in 20-meter storage space. Silently chanting .storage stores items that belong to you. .release retrieves them. After Robin finished reading, he hummed a popular tune to himself with a smug grin. My left hand does Tai Chi. My right thrusts the sword. This sweeping kick is called Clear Snow. It counters the flying swallow light body technique. My unique meridians break through the heavens. A righteous spirit fills the world. A tiny dragon egg totem, no bigger than a soybean, winked on the grid holding the egg. The totem flickered, as if tempting him to poke it. Cowards starve, the bold get fed. Robin didn't hesitate. He poked it. The totem shot out a ball of white light. It flew 3 meters, then unfurled into a light screen, 2 meters by 1 meter, displaying the egg's basic information. Name, none. Species, Australian opali. Rank, A rank. Personality, docile, eats kangaroos and goats. Under certain conditions can go berserk. Physical state, incubation period 3 years. Skills, evil dragon's roar, pauses enemy attacks for 2 seconds. Scarlet flame, 2,000 to 3,000 degrees Celsius. Giant tail whip, force equivalent to swinging 2 tons of iron. Magic power, 5,000. Combat power, 0, not yet hatched. Robin's chest swelled when he read the species and rank. He wanted to scoop up the egg and kiss it. Then he saw the combat power, 0. His heart sank. On Blue Star, people joked that raising baby beasts was like supporting a small gold-eating monster. Robin stared at the giant cube, speechless. How much grinding would he need to afford a pet like this? His worry lasted only 3 seconds. A strange stream of magic flowed from the egg into his meridians. The sensation was like stumbling on an oasis after 3 days crossing a desert, sudden cool, full of fruit, wonderfully comfortable. Robin clenched his fist and guided the flow to his palm. He opened his hand, and a grapefruit-sized scarlet flame hovered there. Hiss! This is magic! Amazing! Truly amazing! And my liver doesn't even hurt anymore. A rush to spend money flared in him, but his pockets were emptier than his expression allowed. He pouted, pulled his consciousness back from his sea of knowledge, and returned to reality. He wanted to know what the world outside the stone pit looked like. Wiping mud from his palms, he dug his fingers into cracks and climbed with everything he had. Heave-ho! 2 minutes later, the top of the pit was within reach. Only 40 centimeters remained. He hauled himself up. His abs, back, arms, and teeth all screamed as he pulled his body over the rim. He came face to face with a huge, ugly green viper head, its fangs 15 centimeters long. Its forked, blood-red tongue slithered across his cheek, leaving 2 glistening, transparent streaks of moisture. Oh, hell! Before he could properly curse, he fell forward, but managed to roll his hands across his chest, bring his legs together, and barrel roll a meter to the right. The next instant, the viper slammed into the spot where he'd been lying, leaving a 10-centimeter deep crater. Robin stared at the snake, fear and adrenaline jangling in him. The beast was 4 meters long, green with blue-green stripes, as thick as an adult thigh. Its head was blunt and triangular. When it opened its mouth, the long, venomous fangs bled stringy, transparent venom. Scattered wounds, likely from raptor talons, marred its body. Critically, its spine was broken about 3 meters from its snout toward its tail. The creature hung limp like a torn rag. Whatever its snake body entanglement skill was, it would be unusable or greatly weakened. A small mercy. The snake lunged again with its mouth wide open. Robin flung the scarlet flame at it. The fire struck its upper jaw, but instead of sizzling and burning, the flame was flicked by the snake's tongue into its belly. The viper exhaled a few puffs of white mist and, to Robin's horror, seemed a bit stronger. What do you do when your attack heals the enemy? There was no time to think. The snake charged again. Robin grabbed a large rock and held it up. The creature crushed it into gravel in 2 seconds. Venom sprayed. Sizzle, bubbling, and the gravel corroded into honeycomb-like pits as if the snake had spat sulfuric acid. He ducked away just in time. If that acid had hit his face which he fancied could stun gods, it would have been a catastrophe. The snake lunged again. Robin snatched up a smoother, harder stone. It lasted a little longer, 3 seconds before the viper smashed it into dust. The scarlet flame had just made the snake stronger. Stones broke in its mouth like chalk. Evil Dragon's roar only paused an enemy for 2 seconds. 2 seconds wouldn't get him out of the pit, even if he sprouted wings. Despair began to creep in. Then a sliver of inspiration flashed through his mind. Dragon egg. He turned, a mischievous smile spreading across his face, and looked at the snake coiling itself. 3. Capture Nagini. As the giant viper lunged forward, jaws wide, Robin activated his Dragon's Roar skill. A deafening roar crashed through the valley. The viper froze in midair, as if someone had hit pause. There wasn't much time. Robin mentally pulled the dragon egg out of the red square and into reality. He shoved it horizontally into the viper's mouth, then with all his strength twisted it upright. The whole move took less than 2 seconds. When he finished, sweat streamed down his forehead. 2 seconds later, the viper snapped out of its stupor and realized something huge was lodged in its mouth. It opened wider and tried to spit it out, but the object was too large and too hard. Its fangs couldn't crush it. The viper thrashed, ramming itself into the nearby pile of rubble. Bang! 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 After more than 10 violent impacts, the already precarious rock pile collapsed toward the viper with a thunderous roar. In seconds, the creature was buried under the rubble, only its head still thrashing. Now, while it was weak, was the time to finish it. Robin grabbed a stone and ran forward, smashing the viper's head until its vertical pupils went an ugly olive and its head went limp on the rubble. At that instant, a sharp stab of pain shot through his left chest. Oh my, I did it! 2 magical creatures in one day. Robin's chest swelled with triumph. Money only truly belongs to you once it's in your pocket. He wasted no time and chanted the containment spell. Contain everything. The giant viper and the dragon egg vanished into thin air. Chanting was definitely faster and less hassle than rubbing totems. Back in Robin's sea of consciousness, the dragon egg floated in the red square. In the green square behind it, a sluggish green viper lay coiled, so still that, but for the occasional blink, it could have been mistaken for dead. Robin reached out and poked the small viper totem on the green square. As before, the totem projected a light screen. Name, Nagini. Species, maledictive viper level S-class. Personality, shy, serene, gentle, and kind in human form. Murderous and fierce in viper form. Physical condition: multiple soft tissue abrasions, fractured spine, moderate concussion, treatment period 3 months. Skills: venom spray, corrodes objects, wounds bleed persistently and won't heal, serpentine movement, confuses enemy vision, coiling entanglement, physical constriction, airwave attack, sprays a pungent odor, can freeze enemy brain for 1 second. Magic power: 8,000, combat power, Nagini, maledictus, human form, viper form. Robin's hands went cold. He had read Rowling's Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts books at least 7 times and seen the film adaptations repeatedly. The name Nagini conjured, in an instant, the image of a graceful, black-haired, exquisitely featured East Asian woman with melancholic, gentle eyes, a tragic beauty. Nagini was one of Robin's favorite characters. He could recite her entire story by heart. In his memory, in 1998, Lord Voldemort and his Death Eaters attacked Hogwarts, and Neville Longbottom, brandishing Godric Gryffindor's sword, destroyed a Horcrux, the Green Viper Nagini. Nagini's love, her lack of regret, and her tragedy vanished from the magical world. Most people knew only that Nagini had been Voldemort's familiar, a monster who had harmed and devoured wizards. Fewer knew she had once been kind, had once opposed cruelty with her friend Credence Barebone, had fought on Dumbledore's side alongside Newt, Theseus, Tina, Jacob, and others against Grindelwald. Robin loved Nagini not only because the actress Kim Soo-hyun fit his image, but because the character herself brimmed with tragic charm. Robin had daydreamed 1,000 times about slipping into the Fantastic Beasts and Harry Potter worlds, punching the animal abuser Orcanis, teaching the ignorant Credence how to cherish people, stopping the village tyrant who baited the innocent viper, and changing Nagini's fate to give her a happy ending. He pressed the green square and stared at the sluggish little viper with aching guilt. If he'd realized it was Nagini sooner, he would have held back, reduced the force of those blows to her head by at least 2/3. It was 1991. He wasn't even sure if Voldemort had already bonded with Nagini. Still, Robin believed in lines of destiny you couldn't seize and let go of lightly. Nagini had entered the Fantastic Beasts breeding cube. She was his now. Even if the King of Heaven came, he couldn't take her away. "Nagini," he murmured, "those dozen or so hits must have hurt. Don't worry, your new master is me. I'm the best at digging for gold. I'll fatten you up and take good care of you." He waved his hand, and the green square drifted back to its place. His consciousness withdrew from the sea of consciousness and returned to the valley. He climbed to the top of the rubble and looked around. The valley was desolate, its floor a field of broken rock. The surrounding walls were nearly vertical. After 3 days of heavy rain, moss had taken hold at the base, making the stones slick. Climbing those walls barehanded? Impossible. About 20 meters away, pressed against the cliff, lay the carcass of a white dragon the size of an elephant. Robin strode toward it, eyes fixed on the majestic Australian opali. Among dragons, the opali's beauty was legendary. Wings smooth and translucent like silk, a row of comb-like ridges running from head to tail along the spine, each ridge resembling delicate ivory carving with the lustrous texture of mutton fat jade. Its eyes had no pupils, just a pure milky white, which gave it the name opali. Most striking were its pearly scales. Under the sun they threw shimmering rainbow light, indescribably beautiful. After admiring it for a moment, Robin got down to business. He crouched beside the dragon's head and tried to close its eyes. The first time, nothing. The second time, nothing. The third time, still nothing. He thought about trying a fourth time, then decided against it. There would be no fourth time. "White dragon," he said aloud to the corpse, "Nagini's injuries were probably mostly your fault, weren't they? Even now, your eyes are fixed toward the rubble nest. You won't let go of the egg, will you? Here's an update. The dragon egg's new owner is me. From now on, I'll be responsible for it. So if I borrow your body for a bit, you won't mind, right? If you don't shake your head, I'll take that as consent." He smiled at his own audacity. "Sk. Just when you were dozing off, someone brings you a pillow. A dragon, a mature dragon. Your magic power must be astonishing." In his head, he could almost hear the dragon's reply. "If I were still alive, I'd swat you with my tail and breathe a dozen flames to turn you to ash." 4. Owl letter. Contain everything. No sooner had the words left his mouth than a white dragon bloomed into being inside his mind. Its body twisted like a pretzel and then dissolved into a wisp of red magical energy that drifted into the little green square where Nagini's icon rested. Robin clicked the little green snake totem and saw that Nagini's healing cycle had shortened from 3 months to 2. Worthy of an adult dragon, indeed. Spoils of war collected. Now to figure out how to leave this god-forsaken valley. Robin shaded his eyes with one hand and looked up toward the rim of the valley. 3 black shapes were approaching from the distance. If you want a piece of dragon flesh, you'd better hurry up. Too late. The white dragon was already claimed. Not crows, then. People, on broomsticks. In a graceful tail whip maneuver like a motorcycle drifting, 3 wizards on broomsticks came to a halt in front of him. The leader was a broad-shouldered man with deep red hair, almost so dark it bordered on brown, a freckled, friendly face, and a scar running up from his wrist. The others were a tall, thin blonde with blue eyes and a short, round fellow with brown hair and eyes. All 3 looked kind and concerned. "Don't be frightened, little one. We're not bad people. I'm Charlie Weasley. What are you doing here alone?" the muscular man said. "Charlie Weasley? Dragon trainer Charlie Weasley," Robin blurted. "You know me?" Charlie scratched the back of his head sheepishly. "Dragon trainer is too grand a title yet, little one. Albania isn't exactly safe. Vampires turn up now and then. Where are the family members who brought you here?" "Albania. The place where Voldemort once recovered and hid himself?" So that was where Nagini and the Dark Lord must have formed their bond. Robin told them the truth. He and his parents had been traveling to Albania when a sudden superstorm hit. His parents were swept away by a flash flood and drowned. He was dragged from the wreckage and captured by an adult Australian opal-eyed dragon, which carried him back to the desolate valley. Later, a titanic snake, many meters long, broke into the valley, swallowed the dragon's egg, and fought the adult dragon. The dragon lost, and the snake crawled off after devouring the corpse. The valley was ringed by steep, almost vertical cliffs. A pool of congealed blood gave off a strong fire magic residue, and everywhere were patches of blood and stringy, translucent venom. A fierce battle had clearly taken place, and against all odds, an 11-year-old boy had survived both an adult dragon and a giant snake, and come through in good shape. Strange, but the magical world was never short on miracles. After all, Harry Potter had severely injured Voldemort as a baby and come away with only a lightning-shaped scar. Charlie strode up and pulled Robin into a hug. "Oh, you poor thing. My father used to say that deceased relatives or friends sometimes watch over the living in another form. Do you have any family left in Cornwall? If so, we'll take you there." "Henry, Terry, the Quidditch International Tournament isn't for a few months. I reckon I have time to go chase some rumored Cornish pixies," the lanky man said cheerfully. "Same here," the short, round one added. "Don't just stand there. Get the boy on a broom." Robin hesitated. "Charlie, before our trip, my parents sold the villa in Cornwall. I don't have any relatives there. I want to go to London. My parents left many things for me at Gringotts. I have to get them." He tugged at the bronze key hanging from a cord around his neck. Charlie leaned in to inspect it. Apart from some wavy patterns, it was almost identical to the keys Mrs. Weasley kept on her keyring, unmistakably a Gringotts key. "Looks like my plan to form a pixie Quidditch team will have to wait," Charlie said with a grin. "London it is." Henry swung a leg over his broom. "What are we waiting for, then?" After mounting, Charlie glanced back at Robin. Robin understood the unspoken cue and climbed on behind him. "Hold on tight, little one," Charlie warned. "If you fall, I'm not responsible." "Okay, ow, wow, that's fast." Robin had known broomsticks were quick, but nothing had prepared him for the raw, slicing rush of air that felt like a roller coaster with the path straightened flat. He pressed his forehead against Charlie's back. It cut the wind a little. They raced for 3 days and 3 nights before reaching their destination, the skies above Ottery St. Catchpole, just outside the patchwork sprawl of the burrow and the edge of a dense forest. No sooner had Robin dismounted than an exhausted owl, feathers dull and chest heaving, landed on his shoulder. Its talons clutched a pale yellow envelope sealed with red wax. The seal bore a shield with a majestic lion, a disdainful eagle, a wise badger, and a cold, arrogant snake clustered around a capital H. Written on the envelope in emerald green ink was 609, International Air Route, Robin Lestrange. Is this a Hogwarts acceptance letter? Charlie and his companions watched with mounting excitement. I got mine yesterday, the freckled, red-haired boy, Ron Weasley, said, practically bouncing. Come on, open it. Maybe we'll be schoolmates. Robin carefully broke the seal and pulled out the letter. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Headmaster, Albus Dumbledore. President of the International Confederation of Wizards, Grand Sorcerer First Class, Order of Merlin, Chief Warlock of the Wizengamot. Dear Mr. Lestrange, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Enclosed is a list of books and equipment required of first-year students. Term begins on September 1st. We await your owl by July 31st. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress. On the second sheet was the familiar list of school robes, textbooks, and equipment first years needed to purchase, and a reminder of what items were forbidden at Hogwarts. 5. The Weasley family. Robin, are you willing to go to Hogwarts? Charlie asked, producing his wand. Yes, very willing. My parents admired Albus Dumbledore greatly. They've always hoped I'd get a letter from Hogwarts. Of course, what drew Robin besides the prospect of learning real magic were the magical creatures. Centaurs, unicorns, acromantulas, the Whomping Willow, trolls, even a basilisk. All right, I'll help you write a reply, Charlie said. Charlie waved his wand. Ink squirted from the tip and hung in the air, coalescing into letters. Dear Professor McGonagall, Robin Lestrange is very willing to attend Hogwarts. The Weasley family will assist him in purchasing his first-year supplies. Charlie Weasley. Charlie conjured an envelope, sealed the reply inside, filled in the sender and recipient, and tucked the letter under the owl's claw. Go on, deliver this to Professor Minerva McGonagall. The owl, practically a postman, gave an intelligent little nod, then flapped off with an unsteady flight. Robin watched it wobble up and down, left and right, and couldn't help asking, do you think it can actually make it to Hogwarts in that state? Don't worry, Charlie said. An owl's endurance is far greater than you imagine. If you met Errol, you wouldn't doubt that Hogwarts' postmen sometimes die of exhaustion, only to stagger back and recover. Errol's an old, clumsy thing, Ron said. His feathers are never right, either greasy and matted or dry and frizzy. He always lands on his head and neck, flaps about like a drowned rooster, and squawks hoarsely. When he's had enough, he lies still and rolls his eyes. Just when you think he's done for, he pops up and starts looking for food. Hey, why are you hitting my head? Ron complained as Charlie ruffled his hair. Charlie let his hand fall, amused. Errol is a great hero of the Weasleys. Don't talk badly about him, no matter how true most of it's sounding. All right, stop standing at the gate. It's hot and I've been flying for days. I could really do with a butterbeer, Charlie protested. Mum won't let you drink alcohol, Ron said. You forget, I'm an adult now, Charlie answered. In Mum's eyes, no matter how old you are, you're still her child, Ron countered. They bickered good-naturedly as they led Robin through the yard toward the famous patchwork house, the Burrow. The roof was slanted in that quirky country way, and several wooden poles were driven through it to support a few more crooked stories added on top. In the original books, Ron and a ghoul shared the attic, and the ghoul would bang on the pipes at night, perhaps the reason for Ron's perpetually heavy under-eye bags. Beside the front door, a pile of tall leather boots lay huddled together, and a rusty old cauldron slumped nearby. Plump, brown-feathered chickens scratched and pecked in the grass. The living room was small and cozy in a very cramped sort of way. A long table in the center was strewn with bottles, jars, and yellowed homework, blotched with butter and tomato sauce. Fred and George were in the middle of a tomato juice fight, laughing as they doused each other. Mrs. Weasley, with the smell of frying and baking about her, had no time for the twins. She was busy kneading bread and frying sausages for dinner. Oh my goodness, what a handsome young man, only slightly less handsome than me. George grinned. You must be Robin Lestrange, the one Charlie wrote about. Want to play a tomato juice game? Robin sidestepped a spray and shook his head. No, thank you. Anyone who knew the twins knew it was either mischief already afoot or mischief imminent. Robin didn't need any more trouble on his hands. Charlie, darling, I've missed you so. Mrs. Weasley bustled over, and Charlie took a quick step back. Seeing the disappointment in his mother's face, he gave in and hugged her. Mrs. Weasley, I've missed you too. Let me introduce you. This is Robin Lestrange. He just got his Hogwarts letter at the gate. He's a prospective first year too. Mrs. Weasley turned to Robin, assessing him at a sidelong glance, praising his looks with enthusiastic maternal energy. What luck! Tomorrow I'm taking Percy, George, Fred, and Ron to Diagon Alley to buy books and equipment. Robin, come with us. If you can't manage the costs right now, I'll buy them for you, and you can pay me back later. The Weasleys were a pure-blood family, and notoriously poor. Many of them relied on second-hand school supplies, yet their kindness and generosity were well known and admired throughout the wizarding community. Thank you, Mrs. Weasley, Robin said. I'd love to go to Diagon Alley with you. Having someone show me around will save a lot of time. But you don't need to pay for me. My parents and ancestors left me some money in a vault at Gringotts. I think it will be enough for my school years. Oh, you poor thing, Mrs. Weasley said, sympathy written all over her face. Charlie told me about your parents. If you don't mind the burrow being simple, please stay with us until term starts. Robin knew the burrow looked as if a strong gust might topple it, but the different parts were held together not just by wood, stone, and brick, but by protective magic. It was safe, and Robin found the layout charming. I don't think it's simple. I think it's fascinating, just the sort of imaginative, untamed space you'd expect witches and wizards to live in. It's wonderfully creative. Do you really think so? Ron asked. On the surface, Ron seemed to take the rustic life in stride. Poor food, shabby clothes, a ramshackle house, but inwardly he felt a little embarrassed by it. Still, Robin's praise pleased him. I've read a lot about house design, Robin went on, but the burrow is the most unique and space-efficient home I've ever seen. Ron looked around the crowded but well-used living room and remembered that each of the 7 siblings had a bedroom. When it comes to using space, Dad and Mum are definitely clever, he agreed. Come on, I'll show you the attic, Ron said. I've plastered my wall with Chudley Cannon's posters. I've got a gray rat, a fish tank, a few frogs. I've loads of toys, playing cards, a mechanical mouse, building blocks, a chess set. Which do you want to play with first? Bill and Charlie had left school early to start work. Percy was straight-laced and serious, buried in his studies and ambitions. Fred and George loved mischief and mayhem. Ginny was shy and quick to tears. Ron, meeting someone his own age, was eager to share everything he had, to bridge any distance and make a friend. 6. Go to Diagon Alley. Okay, if you want to play, play after tomorrow. First, eat dinner, then go to bed early. Tomorrow morning, put flu powder on your head on time. Ron, go call Percy and Ginny down for dinner. Flu powder? The stuff that, when thrown into a magical fire, makes it flare green and can transport you instantly to wherever you say? Robin glanced at the flower pot, then at the fireplace, his eyes shining. Flu powder. Instant teleportation. The thought alone made him giddy. Yes, ma'am. Ron pouted but trudged upstairs to obey. Percy, thin with a sharp, almost Pinocchio-like nose, came down, greeted Robin politely, then sat at the table reading a thick book while quietly eating apple pie. Ginny, like Ron, had bright red hair. She was painfully shy. When she came downstairs, she hid behind Mrs. Weasley, head bowed and hair hanging over her face. Robin half suspected she'd buried her face in her pie and was afraid everyone would laugh if they saw it smeared with apple. During the meal, Ron suggested Robin share the attic with him, but Mrs. Weasley refused. The attic was too small, and the ghoul living there was too ugly and would terrify a guest. In the end, under Mrs. Weasley's arrangement, Robin was put in Bill's room. Bill had gone to work for Gringotts in Egypt and hadn't been back to London for years, so his bedroom was naturally empty, and as the firstborn, it was bigger than the others. Mrs. Weasley even cast cleaning and deodorizing charms so Robin would have a proper night's sleep. Late, lying on his side and staring at the starry sky through the window, Robin let his thoughts run riot. Big fool, blockhead 2, and the third one missing. You 3 must be delighted at the thought of me being dead, right? Laugh a little quieter at my funeral feast, or, well, thick as this spatial barrier is, my slap still probably won't reach your 3 annoying faces. If you ever manage to scrape together half a brain between you, You might find my will tucked under the insole of those camouflage sneakers I haven't worn since training. Put any decent clothes and shoes in the charity box. Sell the computer, tablet, and iPad on Xianyu and donate the money, along with my 56 yuan in savings, to the Little Cabbage Orphanage. As for the 96 yuan student loan, cough, no favorites. You three split it evenly. Remember, don't miss payments. And if your pockets are empty at the feast, don't complain. By then he dozed off. The Burrow living room. Robin, Mrs. Weasley, Charlie, and Ginny stood clustered by the fireplace. Robin, remember, like George, Fred, Percy, and Ron, as soon as you step into the green flames, say where you want to go, Mrs. Weasley instructed. Robin plunged his hand into the flower pot and scooped out a handful of glittering powder. Don't worry, Mrs. Weasley. I've rehearsed the flu steps in my head at least 3 times. All right. Keep your elbows tucked and pronounce Diagon Alley very clearly. Under Mrs. Weasley's anxious gaze, Robin tossed the powder into the grate. With a whoosh, the fire flared emerald and leapt higher than George's head. Robin took a breath, walked straight into the blaze, and shouted, Diagon Alley. A powerful suction yanked him into an unfamiliar space. He clutched his arms in and held on as the world spun. When he finally opened his eyes, he was in a dark, tunnel-like shaft. The green flames and his body twisted and whirled, making him dizzy. Something hard and faceted knocked against his upper arm. He instinctively tucked his elbows in. After a few minutes, the smell of soot grew strong. He blinked, steadied himself, and stepped out of the fiercely burning fireplace. Ah, boring, truly boring, the shopkeeper said, shaking his head as if disappointed. It was the middle of summer, and the fire was roaring. The man assumed the visitor had used flu powder for a prank. Where are the other 3? Robin asked, brushing soot from his sleeves. Percy went off treasure hunting at the used bookshop. Fred and George probably ran to the department store, looking for mischief-making things, Ron answered. Mrs. Weasley lifted her skirts and stepped over the grate. She didn't bother brushing the soot off. She was too cross. Kim, that's childish. Did you not consider that the fire might burn the children? The shopkeeper, Kim, looked up flatly. Mrs. Weasley, I don't think a 40-degree flame can burn anyone. 40 degrees, Mrs. Weasley muttered, about to step closer and check when a small red figure suddenly fell from the top of the fireplace and landed with a plop into the center of the blaze. Miraculously, her dress didn't catch and her skin wasn't burned. Mommy, Ginny screamed. Mrs. Weasley rushed forward and scooped Ginny up, holding her until her sobs subsided. Ginny, where's Charlie? He promised he'd watch all day. Henry and Taylor came and wanted Big Brother to coach them in Quidditch, and then Ginny sniffled, meaning Charlie had left to coach instead of staying with her. Charlie Weasley had once been the envy of every teenager for his talent as a Quidditch seeker. After leaving school, he gave it up and went to Romania to spend his days with dragons, a decision many regretted. Don't use Quidditch as an excuse. I'll have words with him tonight, Mrs. Weasley said, though most of her anger had already faded. She led the group away along a cobbled lane lined with quaint, charming shops, and finally they came to a tall white building. Ron, keep an eye on Ginny. Don't just hand her off like Charlie does, she scolded. Ron took Ginny's hand and patted his chest. Don't worry, Mum. Robin, stay close to me, Mrs. Weasley said. Okay. They passed through glittering bronze doors. Goblin guards in crimson and gold uniforms bowed slightly. The goblins were short, barely 3 feet tall, with pointed beards, dark faces, and unusually long hands and feet. Beyond, a second silver door was engraved with a warning. A rough translation spoke of the curse that would befall anyone who took wealth that was not rightfully theirs. 7. Gringotts. Sir, madam, please follow me. A goblin in a suit bowed and led them into a high marble hall. Robin let his eyes drop, taking in the scene. On either side of the hall ran scores of tall counters, like those in an old pawnbroker's. Goblins in suits perched on high stools behind the counters, some weighing magical coins on bronze scales, some peering through monocles at gemstones, others scribbling in ledgers with quills. Dozens of dark wooden doors lined the walls, and goblins in suits ushered clients in and out. Robin had no idea where any of them led. There, no one's at that counter. Let's use it, Mrs. Molly said, steering him toward a vacant station. Morning. I need to withdraw some coin from Arthur Weasley's vault, she told the goblin. Madam, do you have the key? I do. The goblin examined it carefully. No problem. I'll have someone escort you to the underground vault. Peter? Hold on. There's someone else. The little fellow with me needs to make a withdrawal, too. Madam, you must go with Peter first. We can't process another transaction at this counter until you've finished. Robin, I can handle it. Don't worry, Mrs. Molly. All right? When Mrs. Molly left with the goblin named Peter, the goblin on the high stool turned to Robin. Whose vault? Do you have the key? I have it. Robin handed the key over. It's my father's, Tesm Lestrange's vault. The goblin's expression stiffened at the name. When he saw the rippling pattern on the key, his face grew even more solemn. Little one, besides you, does Tesm have any other children? Adopted children don't count. Robin blinked. The question made no sense, but he covered his confusion quickly. Better to cooperate than offend. Forgive me. I know simply that this is routine. No, there aren't any other children. The goblin pushed his glasses up to the tip of his nose, smoothed his suit, and adopted an unmistakably serious tone. In that case, we proceed to the verification step. He slipped a long, slender pinky into the hole at the top of the key, and turning it, began to chant in a low, unfamiliar goblin tongue. The key whirred faster and faster until it blurred. 3 minutes later, he stopped chanting and withdrew his finger. The key was still spinning and rose about half a meter above the counter. Then, as if by enchantment, delicate golden wings, like the wings of a cicada, sprouted from either side. Moments later, the wings folded, drawing the key into itself. Robin's eyebrows rose. In his memory, a key, wings, and a small round object belonged together only as the golden snitch from Quidditch or the silver key the three children had found beneath the living boards. With a bright clink, the key spread its wings again, and a faint, earthy gray halo appeared around it, swelling and darkening. The key began to change. The ripple pattern peeled away from the metal, hovering a couple of centimeters clear as it swirled. The crescents of pattern coalesced into dusty gray tendrils that wound around a miniature, shriveled branch the key had become. As the halo faded, the tiny tangled twig and vines thudded onto the counter. Robin stared. A golden key had turned into a withered branch and dead vines in a matter of minutes. The goblin muttered, "One more step, the final step." "What does that mean?" Robin asked. The goblin ignored him and pulled a small box from beneath the counter. Inside were needles as thick as headphone cords, their tips diagonally cut and hollow. Robin caught the clinical look on the goblin's face and felt a bad premonition. "Hey, don't do that. I'm a minor and I'm about to go to Hogwarts. My parents." He broke off in surprise as the goblin pinched the tip of his finger, drew a single bead of blood, and let it fall onto the base of the withered branch. The goblin watched with curiosity. "What does holy cow mean?" he asked, baffled. "I have lived hundreds of years and studied countless books, but I have never heard of a spell called Holy Cow. Is it a new charm by some reclusive grand wizard?" Robin grinned inwardly. Holy Cow was a versatile exclamation in his world, but he wasn't about to explain it to a goblin. He lied without hesitation. "Oh yes, Holy Cow. It's a spell, anti-inflammatory, stops pain and bleeding, sterilizes wounds, no wand needed. Very popular in Cornwall." The goblin nodded thoughtfully, clearly impressed. A faint green glow spread from the spot where the blood touched the branch. "The end of the green part turned green?" Robin said, astonished. "With me?" the goblin said. "No, he didn't tell me anything. Tesm must have thought you too young to carry the responsibility of restoring Lestrange glory, but that he entrusted the family symbol to you shows he considers you his heir. All right, verification complete. Mr. Luotsite, please take young Mr. Lestrange to the underground vault, number 714. Vault 714? Another goblin, about a meter tall with graying hair and brisk energy, hurried over. "Vault 714 hasn't been opened in half a century." He set the now lush green twig and vine into Robin's hand. "Keep it safe, don't lose it. And one more thing. The form of a Lestrange family heirloom will change according to the wishes of the family head or the heir. Come, follow me." Luochite rubbed his index finger and opened a door to a narrow, dim stone corridor. He snapped his fingers. Boom, boom, boom. Torches along the walls burst into flame, suddenly bathing the corridor in warm light. 8. What about the promised billions of inheritance? At the end of the stone corridor, a steep, slippery descent led downward. Robin gripped the handrail to keep from slipping. At the bottom of the slope, a rusty little trolley waited on a set of rails. Luotzite gave a shrill whistle. The trolley chuffed forward and came to a stop in front of them, urging them on. They climbed aboard, held the handles, and with a whoosh, the trolley shot through the underground. Gringotts' subterranean network of tracks wound and crossed like a maze. Trying to remember the route would be harder than climbing to the sky. Cold, damp air hissed past Robin's ears, making them ache and his eyes sting. Still, he forced his lids open. He couldn't miss the chance to see the inside of the famous Goblin Bank. Dark blue earthen walls, tangled rails, a mad, fire-breathing dragon slammed with thick iron chains, and an underground lake with stalactites and stalagmites loomed in the dim. After a long run, the trolley finally stopped in front of an open clearing. Robin took a quick somersault off the trolley and landed squarely, expressionless, staring at the vault door ahead. "Young sir, impressive," Luotzite said. "Most people who come down in the trolley are pale, out of breath, or trembling. Follow me. Vault 714 is special. It has no keyhole. If some unlucky fool pokes it with his hand, the door will suck him in. What waits then is either the ministry's judgment or starvation. Hurry now. Move." Robin inwardly wanted to snarl. "Do you think I don't want to move? My legs feel like they're packed with lead. I can hardly lift them. My ears are ringing. My head feels like it's been hammered to pulp." But he kept his face calm. He stared at Luotzite for 3 full minutes, then forced stiff limbs to carry him to the vault. Luotzite shook his head with the tolerant impatience of an elder who remembered how pride keeps the young going and fell into step beside him. "No keyhole. How do you open it?" Robin asked, pretending ignorance. "You'll see. It's not hard, but not exactly simple," Luotzite said, extending a long, wrinkled index finger. He tapped the vault door in a steady rhythm. With each tap, the door seemed to soften, then slowly dissolved into a thick white mist. A dark, anti-peering enchantment shimmered beyond, blocking their view. "You may enter, Mr. Lestrange. I'll wait by the trolley," Luotzite said. Once Luotzite left, Robin took a breath and stepped through. When he crossed the black magic screen and saw inside, his jaw dropped. Vault 714 looked nothing like the parentless Potter vault stacked with galleons and silver bars, nor like the Weasleys' sparse account. Floating in the center of the vault, suspended in midair, was a single narrow strip of paper, about 10 centimeters long and 1 centimeter wide. He reached out and took it. On it, in clear script, were the words, "Struggle is strength. Determination is wealth." Robin stared. "You've got to be kidding me. Where's the promised fortune? How did billions get reduced to a scrap of paper?" Tissim had told the original owner time and again that the Lestrange family's wealth was hoarded here at Gringotts, so vast it could never be spent in a dozen lifetimes. All a trick for children? He poked around the 3x3x3 meter vault to be sure. It was indeed empty except for that strip. Disappointed, Robin collapsed onto the cold floor, utterly deflated. "Great. I can't escape a life of hard work, even in another world. No instant fortune. Just more toil. There are 2 kids in the magic cube that still need feeding." In a petulant, almost ceremonial gesture, he tore the paper into pieces and tossed them up toward the ceiling. As the scraps fluttered, they began to glow with an eerie green light. Oh no, did the ancestors put a curse on this? The fragments broke into a dust of green motes, merging and separating until they formed letters again. "Aha! Kids, scared, aren't you? Just kidding." That was not funny, Robin thought, but the motes only spread wider, drifting to every corner of the vault. Then, like rain, they fell, and where they touched the stone, they burst into a thick green mist. The mist swirled and soon filled the whole vault. Robin folded his coat 3 times and clamped it over his mouth and nose. If these eccentric ancestors had left anything toxic in their jokes, he wanted none of it. Fortunately, the mist thinned almost as quickly as it had come. When it cleared, the true contents of Vault 714 were revealed. Bulging off-white burlap sacks, stacked half the height of the vault, filled one side. Opposite them stood 4 large wooden chests and a heap of what at first glance looked like scrap metal. Robin opened one chest out of curiosity. Inside lay scroll after scroll of parchment. He unrolled one and read, "Recipe, baldness hair regrowth potion." He unrolled another, 1-second sleep potion. Another, body odor removal potion. Pet hair, shiny and smooth. Myopia vision improvement potion. And then his eyes snagged on a familiar name. Amortentia! Robin's heart leapt. Potion recipes. If properly sold or brewed, these could be a gold mine. Many fortunes in the wizarding world began with a single recipe. A grin spread across his face that he couldn't suppress. He opened the other 3 chests. The second and third were like the first, packed with potion recipes, rare and practical formulas that could fetch a steady income. The fourth chest, however, rattled with metal. He lifted the lid and saw it was full of galleons. Robin picked one up and bit it, leaving a little tooth mark and the familiar tang of metal on his tongue. Definitely a real coin. The chest was crammed, probably holding tens of thousands of galleons. That alone would see him through years of books, robes, and supplies. He turned to the sacks, expecting grain or herb seeds, and tore one open. Gold dust spilled into his hands, fine as velvet and gleaming. He opened another, more gold dust. He held a handful and felt a thrill like gripping a broomstick with a perfect tailwind. The chests and sacks were priceless. That pile by the wall was far from mere scrap. 9. First upgrade. Robin Lestrange had a degree in computer science. His knowledge of metals barely went beyond iron, copper, aluminum, gold, and silver. He wasn't an alchemist, and he didn't particularly care to be one. Still, he had something that could identify them. He picked up a fist-sized lump of dark metal and dropped it into the central axis of the giant Rubik's Cube. Instantly, a thin band of light shot out from the front of the cube and displayed Cultivation value plus 15, Rubik's Cube level 1, 10,000. Robin's eyes glittered. He kept feeding the scrap pieces into the axis. Each produced its own readout, plus 5, plus 25, 30, plus 7, until every fragment from the vault had been cataloged. The light screen updated, Rubik's Cube level 2, 3,000. At the same time, a new function unlocked, Magic Scan, once per day, 10 seconds per use. The Magic Scan wasn't so much a feature of the cube as it was a gift to Robin himself. Activating it displayed the cultivation value above every item within his visible range, a power a lot like the protagonist's X-ray vision in those gem-diving web novels. It was limited in uses and duration, but 10 seconds could be used very cleverly. When he had explored everything in the vault, Robin silently intoned, "Collect all," and the items streamed into the storage space beside the giant Rubik's Cube. He stepped out of the vault. The dark barrier sealed behind him, and the vanished door slowly reformed. Only once the door was whole again did he head off to find the gray-haired goblin Luosite, take the magic cart, and return to the main hall. Bang! A small, clumsy goblin bumped into the gray-haired goblin, who rubbed his shoulder and swore, "Holy crap! Is holy crap a new spell developed by some reclusive great wizard?" The clumsy goblin asked, wide-eyed and earnest. "Yes, the holy crap spell is all the rage in the Cornwall department. It has," the gray-haired goblin began, then trailed off into an unnecessarily thorough explanation of its origin and usage. Robin watched the goblin Kodak, who had been perched on a high stool, play the pedant to the naive little goblin. He felt a flicker of amusement and a little embarrassment for the pair. That Kodak learned a new spell and didn't tell his old friend? Unacceptable. "I must go settle this," Luochite huffed. "Griffhook, see Mr. Lestrange out." Griffhook, a low-ranking goblin, scurried forward and bowed. "Yes, Mr. Luosite, please follow me, Mr. Lestrange." As Robin walked toward the silver gate, he could still hear "holy crap" being discussed inside the hall. Mrs. Weasley spotted the black-haired, black-eyed youth emerging and hurried over, concern written on her face. "Robin, how was it? Was the cart ride all right?" Robin cleared his throat. "Cough, cough. It was fine, I think. A bit dizzy, but nothing worse. Where are Ron and Ginny?" Mrs. Weasley pointed down the street. "There they are, glued to a shop window like they're under a spell." Robin stepped closer and found Ginny pressed to the display, her small face yearning at a pink butterfly hair clip dotted with tiny diamonds. Ron stood beside her in the same posture and expression, staring at a model Cannon's team cannon. "Do you want it?" Mrs. Weasley asked. "Yes," Ron and Ginny answered together. "Well," Mrs. Weasley began, then cut herself off. "No, we can't buy it. It's too expensive. 10 galleons. You know Ollivander's wands are only 7 galleons. It's just—" Ron came to his senses and shook his head. "Ginny, that hair clip is much cheaper than the cannon." Ginny counted on her fingers in a soft, hopeful voice. One galleon could buy a set of third-hand robes, a rusty cauldron, dozens of old textbooks. Stop counting, Ginny. You shouldn't be worrying about that at your age. You'll have the hair clip. Now come on, let's get things for Ron and for Mr. Lestrange. Okay, Mum. Ginny still looked back longingly at the pink clip, even as Mrs. Weasley led her away. The four of them, Robin, Mrs. Bing, Weasley, Ron, and Ginny, soon arrived at Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions. Madame Malkin, a short, plump woman in purple, measured Robin, snip, snip, and soon produced 3 plain black work robes, a plain black pointed hat, a pair of dragonhide protective gloves, a black winter cloak with silver buttons, and a name tag engraved Robin Lestrange. Robin tried everything on. The fit was good, the fabric comfortable, and as he put on the pointed hat and wrapped the robe about him, he suddenly felt far more wizardly. Mrs. Weasley, however, was careful with her money. At Madame Malkin's, she spent only a single nut. She bought a name tag engraved Ron Weasley. She planned to alter Bill's old robes for Ron to wear. The rest of the needed items, gloves, hat, cloak, textbooks, cauldrons, telescopes, scales, were bought from second-hand shops. To keep Ron from feeling slighted, Robin selected a few items there as well. After the second-hand shop, they went to Flourish and Blot's, Slug and Jigger's Apothecary, and Elop's Owl Emporium, finally arriving at Ollivander's wand shop. For a wizard, wands were everything. Wands cast magic. Ollivander's was small and shabby. The gold lettering above the door was half peeled away and the display window coated in a dull, yellowish dust. A little bell tinkled when they pushed the glass door open. Inside, there was only one long bench for customers. Mrs. Weasley sat Ginny on the bench while Ron leaned against the counter, eyes fixed on the 1,000 narrow boxes stacked from floor to ceiling, each box containing a single, unique wand. "Good morning, young man. Who's choosing a wand today?" A soft voice called from behind the counter. Click, click. A white-haired old man with startlingly bright eyes rose up, rubbing his lower back. Ron startled and clung to Mrs. Weasley's skirt. "It's me," Robin said. "Hello, I want to choose a wand." Ollivander scanned him intently, then pulled a tape measure from his pocket. "Which hand will you use to wield the wand?" "My left," Robin said. "I'm left-handed." "Come then, raise your arm." "Good, yes, just so." Ollivander measured Robin's shoulder width, the length from shoulder to fingertip, elbow to wrist, shoulder to floor, armpit to knee, the distance between his eyebrows to his philtrum, left nostril to right nostril, and finally his head circumference. 10. Collectively disliked by wands. All right, you're suited for a wand between 10 and 13 inches. Mr. Ollivander put the tape measure away, turned, and walked behind the counter, sometimes tiptoeing to reach high shelves, sometimes bending to feel boxes, sometimes squatting to pull from the bottom. "Try this first. Mahogany, 10 inches, fairly flexible, not easy to break, and very powerful. Ideal for transfiguration." Robin took the wand and gave a casual flick at a glass on the counter. Thump! The glass sprouted 4 tiny legs and a rat's tail and began hopping. Before it could topple, Mr. Ollivander caught it and waved his wand to restore it. "Clearly not for you. Try this. 12 inches, unicorn hair core, strong affinity, excellent for healing." The wand buzzed like an electric toothbrush the moment Robin touched it. Sparks the size of ping-pong balls crackled at its tip. "Mr. Ollivander snatched it back almost before Robin could think. "Try this one. 11 inches, oak, dragon heartstring." Robin raised it and flicked his wrist. Boom! A brilliant yellow dragon blasted from the tip, scorching the ceiling as it surged upward and then careened down. Mr. Ollivander and Mrs. Molly moved at once to stop a fire. Embarrassed, Robin rubbed his hands. "Sorry, I didn't expect." Mr. Ollivander put the oak wand away, bemused rather than upset. As he reached for another box, he said, "The Ollivanders have been making fine wands since 382 BC. We've seen far more particular customers than most people imagine. Now, try this. 13 inches, elm, kraken spinal cord." Robin didn't want to cause any more trouble, so he took it carefully and pointed into the air. Splash! No claws or tails this time, no fire, just a geyser of salty seawater. A flopping sea fish landed on the counter, blinked and wriggled. Ron grinned at it and called to his mum, "Mum, I think we've got an extra meal today." "That's not the point," said Robin's mother sharply. "If Robin can't find a wand that suits him, he'll just have to sit idle in class. Mr. Ollivander, please keep looking." "Madam," Rest assured, Mr. Ollivander replied. Robin tried more than a dozen wands after that, and each attempt was more disappointing than the last. Mr. Ollivander sighed and said, Mr. Lestrange, wands are not merely inanimate wood, they have souls. It is not the customer who chooses, the wand chooses its master. Do you understand? So I'm being rejected by every wand in the shop? He refused to believe it. May I look behind the counter myself, Mr. Ollivander? All right, very well. Mr. Ollivander stepped aside. Robin went behind the counter and one by one felt the boxes along the shelves. The first buzzed, clearly refusing him. The second thudded against its sides, almost knocking it off the shelf. The third, and the next, and the next. Hour after hour, his fingertips polished the box exteriors to a shine, yet not a single wand welcomed him. Rejected by all of them? Ridiculous. Then, as he leaned on the counter, exhausted, something caught his eye. A long, unpainted wooden wedge propping up one leg of the counter. It had a groove along one side like the lid of a box. Mr. Ollivander, Robin asked, is there a wand in the block propping up the counter? There is one, but Mr. Ollivander began, then stopped as Robin bent and lifted the counter a fraction, sliding the box out and replacing it with the solid block. Only listening to half of what I say is not a good habit, he said dryly. Mr. Lestrange, I should tell you the wand in that box is hollow, Robin guessed, already opening the lid. Yes, it has no core. Mr. Ollivander's brow tightened. 200 years ago, during a severe drought in South Yorkshire, the riverbed was exposed. Locals dug for water and found instead an ancient piece of ebony that had lain dormant for tens of millions of years. Ebony? Robin echoed as his fingers closed around the wand. The wood was dense, smooth, warm, and gleamed in the light, an unmistakably ancient fossilized black. He felt an odd certainty that this wand belonged to him. Mr. Ollivander continued, My grandfather bought the best section of that carbonized ebony at great expense. He spent 3 months turning and polishing it into a wand, but after trying every core, it couldn't assist a wizard in casting magic. My grandfather tried dragon heartstrings, phoenix feathers, unicorn hair. Nothing worked. It could only ever be an ornamental piece. Can something without a core be called a wand? Robin had finally found one he liked, and had no intention of giving up. A memory from a goblin named Kodak lit in his mind. The Lestrange family heirloom could change its form to match the will of the family head or heir. Should he, make their tree of life and the immortal vine into a wand core? Mr. Ollivander, the Lestrange family does have an ancestral heirloom. May I try? You may, came the answer. Robin slipped his hand into his sleeve and murmured a small practiced charm. Release a little. He touched the tiny branch and vine he'd kept hidden and imagined them uncoiling, becoming a thin, viscous green fluid. In his palm, the plant material seemed to dissolve into a luminescent line. He poured the fluid core into the ebony wand and sealed the base. The moment Robin gripped it, a warm, friendly sensation pulsed up his arm. The wand sent out messages of kinship, affinity, and obedience. This was what Mr. Ollivander meant. The wand had chosen its master. This is the one, Robin said. I want to test it. He tapped the wand lightly against the counter. A faint green light, so faint it might have been mist if one blinked, shimmered from the tip, settled on the wood, and then vanished. It's not bad. At least it works now. Mr. Ollivander glanced at the counter, which hadn't lost a speck of paint, and tried to be reassuring. Robin ignored him, eyes dark and intent on the spot where the green light had struck. Then he noticed something, a faint green sprout emerging from the seam where the wooden panels met. There's a change. Look, right there, in the crack where the green light hit, he cried. No sooner had he spoken than a tiny seedling with 2 leaves pushed up through the crack. Under everyone's astonished gaze, it grew at an almost visible speed. Leaves unfurled, branches shot out, buds swelled and opened into flowers. The flowers swayed, were pollinated, fruited, and the fruit ripened before their eyes. Robin plucked one, peeled away the skin to reveal a round, purplish-red flesh, freckled with black spots that gave off a heady, sweet aroma. He bit in, and, to his surprise, it tasted very sweet. Awesome! Ron leapt forward, grabbed a fruit and ate it, lips stained purplish-red, and made sure to pick one for his mother and for Ginny. Mr. Ollivander stared at the bulging crack in the counter and then at the plant, which now towered a meter high. With a weary, helpless little sigh, he picked the last fruit. Mr. Lestrange, you really have a talent for causing trouble. Oh, now I remember. Last year, Lena sent a fruit platter with dragon fruits. The seeds must have fallen into the cracks then. Robin beamed. This showed the wand he wanted was powerful. He tried to be generous. Mr. Ollivander, how many galleons for a new custom counter? I can pay you for this. But Mr. Ollivander waved him off. Then, with a few precise moves of his own wand, the dragon fruit plant vanished, and the counter was restored as if nothing had happened. When people try wands, accidents happen 7 times out of 10. Everything in the shop is charmed with protective magic. As long as it doesn't turn to powder, it can be put back to the way it was. Robin nodded. Mr. Ollivander, I'll take this wand. 7 galleons, right? No, the core's yours. 3 galleons will do. All right. After Robin paid 3 galleons, Mr. Ollivander bowed them out. By then the sun was low. Mrs. Weasley was planning to take the group back, but halfway home, Robin announced he had forgotten something and excused himself for 10 minutes. They met up afterward with Percy, Fred, and George, and returned to the burrow through Boss Gin's fireplace. Oh, my dear, looking after 5, no 6 children on your own must have been exhausting. Here, have a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice to cool down, Arthur said as he handed the cup over. The speaker was a thin, fairly tall man with thinning red hair and a tendency to go a little pink when flustered. Mrs. Weasley snatched the cup, downed it in one gulp, planted her hands on her hips, and launched into full scolding mode. Arthur, you can't keep doing this. Every time there's a big shopping trip, you use that rotten excuse about having to work overtime at the ministry to weasel out. It was hard to imagine the short, plump, usually gentle Mrs. Weasley as anything but a tigress when she was scolding. Robin, don't be too surprised. This is Mrs. Weasley's true self, Ron whispered. Arthur adored his wife and stood quiet, taking the lecture without protest. When he noticed she was out of breath and clearly parched, he helped her to the sofa, poured another glass of juice, and promised repeatedly that he would never do it again. You mustn't do this again, Arthur, understand? She said, catching her breath. Molly, there won't be a next time. This must be our Robin Lestrange, right? Hello, Mr. Arthur. I heard from Charlie that you work in the Ministry's Misuse of Muggle Artifacts office. Arthur rubbed his nose, thinking guiltily of the pile of Muggle objects in his garage. Yes. Mostly I draft regulations, search wizard homes for hidden Muggle items, and clean up the messes Willie Wittershins makes. I always want to pry open his skull to see why he has a problem with toilets. Molly, dinner's almost ready. No more of that. Percy, Fred, George, Ron, Robin, Ginny, go put away what you bought today. Then come down for dinner. All right, Mrs. Weasley. At dinner, Mrs. Weasley mentioned that garden goblins had been particularly troublesome lately, destroying many flowers. Arthur promptly appointed Ron to deal with them. Charlie was staying with a friend, Percy had reading to do, Fred and George were famously unreliable, and Ginny would be reduced to tears at the sight of goblins. Ron, therefore, was the obvious choice. Arthur explained the goblins to Robin, small magical pests about 35 centimeters tall, rough-skinned and oddly proportioned, with large heads and scrawny bodies, a little like a thin wooden stake with a potato perched on top. They had broad, flat feet and knobbly ankles. Goblins were not very bright and loved to watch a spectacle. When one of their number was caught by a wizard, the rest would gather round to watch, rather than run away. Wizards rarely harmed them. The usual method was to grab a goblin by the ankle, whirl it until dizzy, and then throw it far off. Some stubborn ones would sneak back over fences at night. Mr. Arthur, can I catch goblins with Ron? Robin asked. Goblins' teeth are sharp. They'll bite your hand off, warned someone. Good for you. Then you'd be famous at Hogwarts. One-handed shrimp. Fred and George chorused, doubled over in laughter. Robin, don't listen to them, Arthur said. You just need to rustle the flower beds to lure them out, grab them by the ankle, spin them till they're dizzy, and chuck them away. Simple. Once you're good at it, you and Ron can have competitions. So you mean I can go catch goblins with Ron? Robin asked. Eager. Arthur shrugged. I don't see any reason to refuse a guest's offer. Robin thanked him and began shoveling the soup-soaked rice in front of him like a boy who couldn't wait to get started. He had no idea the goblin-catching duty would stretch into a task lasting nearly 2 months. August 31st, Evening. Thud! After flinging a skinny, limp goblin over the fence, Robin clapped his hands. Last one. Today's goblin catching mission is complete, Ron. Let's go back. All right. 12. Platform 9 3/4. Ron lifted his flushed face out of the melon patch, shouldered a pile of sweet melons, and followed Robin toward the house. As they walked, he asked curiously, Strange. I haven't seen that unusually big, burly, foul-mouthed garden goblin around for ages. I asked the others, and they said they haven't seen it in forever. Maybe it moved, Ron. One less garden pest makes it easier to be happy, doesn't it? No, I'm a bit worried, that's all. But you're right. One less permanent pest in the garden is a good thing. Mr. and Mrs. Weasley didn't know where the missing garden goblin had gone, and Ron didn't either, but Robin did. It was obediently tucked inside the orange square of his giant Rubik's Cube. A light tap on the little garden goblin totem on the square brought up a display on the cube's screen. Name, Glanth Rubble, species garden goblin, level E. Personality, loves eating plant roots, gossiping, swearing, and joining in on the fun, stubborn and thick-headed. Physical condition, healthy, skills, gossip soul, can eavesdrop on gossip within a 5-meter radius. Anti-hoe digging, in soil, can dig a hole up to 3 meters deep and 5 meters in diameter. For objects, can dig 1 meter deep and 2 meters in diameter. Sound-piercing ears, can unleash a 200 decibel shriek at a single target. Accurate throw, within 1 meter, throwing success rate 100%. Magic power, 500. Combat power, 50. As expected of a low-level magical creature, the 100 magic power Robin had transferred to it, 20% of its total, barely did anything. It was like buying a tub of Haagen-Dazs in the height of summer, only to watch it melt and splatter when you finally open it. Still, the garden goblin's innate abilities were interesting enough to keep. After returning to the burrow, Robin took a hot shower, enjoyed a hearty dinner, and then packed what he'd need for the next day before going to bed. The next morning, at 10:45, they were off to King's Cross. A battered, paint-peeling car rattled into the parking area. A red-haired middle-aged man and a short, stout woman climbed out. Then 6 children tumbled from the car, all of them carrying heavy luggage except the smallest child, who held nothing. Could one small car really transport 8 people and a mountain of luggage? Not unless it had been enchanted. Arthur Weasley, head of the Misuse of Muggle Artifacts office, loved tinkering with Muggle things. He'd patched up a scrap of a car and cast a few spells on it, or it would never have carried so many people. My dear, he said, glancing at the clock, the train leaves in 10 minutes. You don't want Ron and Robin to miss their first day, do you? There's no convincing you, Mrs. Weasley sighed, and then found 5 plain luggage trolleys, piled everything on them, and led the family into the station. The platform was packed. They squeezed and shoved their way forward until they reached the stretch between platforms 9 and 10. Robin's gaze swept the crowd and landed on a boy with black hair and green eyes, looking utterly lost and helpless as he clutched a simple trolley. A gust of wind lifted the boy's bangs and revealed a lightning-shaped scar on his forehead. It was unmistakable. The famous boy who lived. Harry, who'd just been scolded by a security guard and had no idea what to do next, stared blankly around the station until his eyes met Robin's. The trolley, the large trunk, the canvas bag, and the enormous birdcage containing an owl with sleek feathers, all signs that this boy was bound for Hogwarts, too. Harry summoned his courage and pushed his trolley forward. Hello, do you know how to get to platform 9 3/4? Robin felt a flicker of excitement, a real protagonist, right here, still fresh-faced and unscarred by whatever fate had in store. He kept his voice steady. There, see that barrier between platforms 9 and 10? That's where you go. Hold your luggage tight and run straight through. You'll end up on the other side. As he spoke, Percy and one of the twins had already charged through. Mrs. Weasley was encouraging George to go next. If you're nervous, I can show you, she offered. Thank you. I'd appreciate that. Harry was relieved. People seemed friendlier than those at the Dursleys. Robin, George has gone through. Your turn. Okay, Mrs. Weasley, but when I go through, could you let him go first? I understand, and it's only natural to be a little nervous the first time on a train, Mrs. Weasley said. Robin nodded at Harry, braced himself against the trolley, and pushed off. In the next instant, he slipped through the stone barrier and arrived on platform 9 3/4. A dark red steam engine numbered 5972 sat by the platform, hissing and steaming. The platform thronged with people, trunks and cages of animals everywhere. Cats and toads and owls weaved through the crowd. "Oh!" The surprised exclamation came from Harry. He started to introduce himself. "Hello, thank you, my name is..." But the train's whistle blew. Toot, toot, toot. The insistent tooting cut him off. "Robin, Ron, and this young gentleman, quickly, get on the train and find seats. When you get to Hogwarts, remember to write to me," Mrs. Weasley called, tugging Ginny's hand. "Okay, Mum," Ron answered and was the first to climb aboard. "Mrs. Weasley, there's a box under Bill's bed. It's my thank you gift for staying at the Burrow for 2 months. The gift's a bit humble, but I hope you and Arthur won't dislike it when you see it," Ron called as he boarded. "No, not at all. Even a blank sheet of paper would make Arthur and me happy to draw on." Mrs. Weasley laughed. Robin waved to Mrs. Weasley and Ginny, pushed his luggage onto the train, and stepped inside. Harry followed closely behind. The first few carriages were already full. Ron squeezed through, politely saying, "Excuse me, please let me through," carving a path for Robin and Harry. From the aisle came a small, plaintive voice. "Grandma, I've lost my toad again." "Classic," Neville Longbottom. Robin looked over. Neville was a bit round-faced, with sandy brown hair and wide, anxious eyes that always seemed on the verge of welling up. An elderly witch sitting near the window sighed sympathetically. "Robin, careful. Someone's letting spiders loose to scare people," Ron warned in a low voice. "You said it was too late." Robin stared down at the hairy spider lying dead at his feet, then looked up at the dark-skinned boy with Jamaican dreadlocks. "No, I just let it out, no." "How much?" "I can compensate you," the boy said. "Forget it, it's my fault too. I wasn't watching it properly. So you don't have to pay me for stepping on the spider, then?" Catching sight of the boy nodding, Robin grinned. "All right, now let's talk about how much you owe me." "Compensate me?" Lee Jordan protested, incredulous. "These leather shoes of mine are very expensive, and the cleaning fee will cost a lot. Also, that hairy spider gave me a start. My heart's still racing. You'll have to pay me for emotional distress." "Lee Jordan, I can vouch for him. Those shoes really are expensive, extremely expensive." Ron chimed in, making Lee flush and fumble. He had no cash on him. I'm sorry. Can I write an IOU?" Hard to imagine a Quidditch commentator so flustered. After enjoying the teasing, Robin waved it off generously. "All right. Since you've forgiven me for the spider, I'll waive the cleaning fee and the emotional distress. Let's get acquainted. I'm Robin. Robin Lestrange." "Lee Jordan, you were just joking about charging me, right?" Lee only just realized what had been happening. Robin shrugged. "Otherwise, Ron, we need to hurry or we won't find an empty compartment even if we make it to the last car." "Understood." Ron bent down, grabbed the handle, and with a tractor-like grunt, shoved the door open and pushed through. At last, the three of them found an empty compartment toward the back of the train. After stowing their trunks, it was time for proper introductions. Ron stared at the black-haired, green-eyed boy across from him. "You're Harry Potter," he said in disbelief. After Harry told them about life with the Dursleys, the bond was instant. "I've never had many new things either," Ron said. "My uniform's hand-me-downs from Bill, my wand's Charlie's old one, most of my textbooks are from Fred and George, and even my pet, Percy, threw him away." Ron reached into his jacket and pulled out Scabbers, the mangy rat, looking wistful. "Still, you have some new stuff. I got you something this morning. Open it." Harry unwrapped the small box to find a brand new quill and unopened bottle of ink. "Is this from Tesso's? It's expensive, Robin. Thanks." "You're welcome." Robin had originally thought to buy a Cannon's Team cannon as a joke, but within seconds he'd changed his mind and gone to the stationer's instead. Toot! Toot! The steam engine began to pull away. Robin, Harry, and Ron leaned out the window to wave as Mrs. Weasley and Ginny called after them on the platform. The Hogwarts Express threaded through the hills, past grazing cattle and sheep and endless green fields. Around noon, a woman with dimples opened the compartment door. "Children, it's lunchtime. Would you like anything?" Mrs. Weasley had packed sandwiches for the 5 of them, but after sitting all morning, they were cold and hard and hardly tempting. Harry and Robin, with a few coins in their pockets, bought a pile of sweets. licorice wands, Bertie Bott's every flavor beans, chocolate frogs. Robin tore open his chocolate frog wrapper and took out the collectible card inside. Sharp, piercing blue eyes, half-moon spectacles, a crooked nose, long beard and hair. Albus Dumbledore leered up at him from the card. "There are words on the back," Harry said. Robin flipped it over and read aloud. Albus Dumbledore, current headmaster of Hogwarts. Contributions include defeating the Dark Wizard, discovering 12 uses for dragon's blood, and alchemical work with Nicholas Flamel. Hobbies: chamber music, tenpin bowling. Robin's finger lingered on the name Nicholas Flamel. He thought of the Philosopher's Stone, of the stone Lord Voldemort had sought. Its power to grant immortality made him want, absurdly, to drop it into the center of a giant Rubik's Cube. Thump, thump. A rap on the compartment door broke his reverie. "Come in." A round-faced boy with tearful eyes pushed the door open. "Excuse me, have any of you seen a toad?" When the three shook their heads, Neville burst into tears. "Wah! I've lost it again. Why does it always want to leave me?" Robin swallowed a smile at Neville's melodrama. He pulled a small glass sphere from his pocket, traced it with his fingertips, and muttered a string of nonsense charms. His body gave a little shudder, like someone who'd seen a startling vision. "Don't cry," he said, perfectly deadpan. "I've studied divination. I can see your toad will come back to you before we reach the Hogwarts gates." "Really?" Neville sniffled. "Are you saying that? Can I—" "No, thank you," he stammered when Robin's expression remained unreadable. After Neville hurried off, Harry beamed. "Robin, you're brilliant. You can do divination." "No, he can't," Ron said flatly. He was chewing on 3 flavors of Bertie Bott's every flavor beans simultaneously and couldn't contain his skepticism. "You tricked him." "I didn't trick him," Robin replied. "When we arrive at Hogwarts, the people meeting us always ask about lost things. They'll ask once we reach the gates, and whoever is looking will go and search before we even reach the castle. It's faster than checking compartment by compartment." "Oh, right," Harry said, eyes bright with sudden understanding. "Never mind the toad. I'll show you a trick. Fred and George taught me." Ron set Scabbers on the table and raised his wand. "Daisy, Sweet Butter, and Sunshine, turn this stupid, fat rat yellow." Robin internally noted that stupid fit Ron better than the rat. Scabbers, for all his scruffy appearance, seemed nothing like a dumb creature. Robin watched the rat's right paw and froze. One of the digits was missing. Scabbers was Peter Pettigrew's animagus form. Of that Robin was dimly aware from overheard rumors. And Pettigrew had betrayed his friends, framed Sirius Black, and been acclaimed a hero. Pettigrew had supposedly been killed during the hunt, and had even been honored with the Order of Merlin, first class. So why was one of Scabbers' toes gone? What had decided Pettigrew dead when only a finger was missing? Were the rest of him eaten by wolves? Ron noticed Robin staring and said, almost apologetically, "Robin, there's nothing we can do about Scabbers' paw. Mum and Dad tried everything. That toe won't grow back. Maybe we should try a Muggle method," someone suggested, voice dripping with false practicality. "Cut off the whole right paw and fit a prosthetic." Scabbers squeaked in panic, scrambling across the compartment and toward the door. Ron lunged after him, bending to catch the scrawny rat, when the compartment door slammed open from the corridor. Scabbers kicked off with his hind legs and leapt, only to be booted back inside by the tip of a shiny white leather shoe. "Scabbers! My Scabbers!" Ron cried, scooping the rat up. Scabbers lay on his back, eyes rolling. Ron checked him frantically for injuries. "It's you?" Harry asked the man in the white shoes. He recognized him from Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions. "Goyle, are you sure you saw a lightning-shaped scar on the forehead of the black-haired, green-eyed boy?" "Positive," Goyle mumbled, pointing at Harry. The owner of the white shoes straightened his robes with an affected air and introduced himself as if announcing a prize. "This is Goyle, and this is Crabbe. They're my followers. My name is Malfoy, Draco Malfoy. My father's Lucius Malfoy, and he owns—" Ron burst into snickering, interrupting Malfoy's grandstanding. Malfoy glared. "You find the name Malfoy amusing, do you?" he sneered. "Messy red hair, face full of freckles, always crouching. Not a single silver sickle to your name. You must be a Weasley. I hear your family's so poor, you live by scavenging." "You," Ron started, fists clenched. "Apologize," he almost shouted. Before a fight could start, a boy in the compartment, Robin, stepped forward, drawing Ron and Harry a little behind him and staring straight at Malfoy. "Apologize. Apologize to Ron," he said flatly. Malfoy turned his piercing gray eyes on Harry. "Harry Potter, you should know better than to make friends with the wrong sort. Keep company with the likes of those, and you'll end up just like your parents." "I can decide who I befriend," Harry said, stiffening. "And don't joke about my parents." Ron surged forward, about to grab Malfoy's face, but Robin's hand on his arm held him back. "Fighting's too low class," Robin murmured, then narrowed his eyes and took a few careful steps closer to Malfoy. Malfoy raised an eyebrow, ready to make more cutting remarks. Then he winced. "What's that smell?" he demanded, covering his nose and mouth in disgust. Ron sniffed and wrinkled his nose. "Ugh, it's horrible. It smells like rotten eggs, and it's coming from you," Crabbe pointed. "Malfoy, there's a yellow stain on the back of your trousers. It's spreading." Malfoy's face drained of color. He reached back, felt something warm and sticky, and brought his fingers to his face. The stench hit him so violently he nearly retched. "The noble Master Malfoy," he began, but there was nothing noble left about him in that moment. What magic did you do to me?" Malfoy spluttered, pointing a trembling finger at Robin. Robin stepped back several paces as Malfoy jabbed his finger forward, deftly avoiding the splatter of foul yellow goo that soaked the back of Malfoy's robes. "I'd recommend St. Mungo's has a department for embarrassing accidents," Robin said calmly. "You'd better get back to your compartment before your reputation as a projectile warrior has Hogwarts laughing for 7 years." Malfoy blustered and turned, and with an anguished cry, another warm, viscous trickle ran down his leg. "Goyle, give me your cloak," he barked. Goyle fumbled out a bulky coat and threw it over Malfoy. The pale boy wrapped himself up like a burn victim and edged forward on those dainty white shoes that suddenly looked ludicrous. Harry shut the compartment door and, on impulse, sprayed a cloud of perfume inside. "Robin," he asked as the smell cut the stench, "how did you do that?" Robin wiped his thumb on a piece of bread and grinned, unrepentant. "I didn't do anything magical. Maybe someone ate too many cold things before getting on the train." He dug into his pocket and produced a piece of red bean and honey toast, taking a contented bite. "Hungry? You three want some? Ron, are you having one with cheese and potato filling?" Ron hugged Scabbers and shook his head, still staring at Malfoy through the window of the closed compartment. He was too astonished to do anything but clutch his rat. It wasn't really excrement at all. Robin had been out by the lake earlier and found a nest of rotten eggs hidden in the bushes by the pond, eggs that had already gone to liquid. He'd traded a handful of rice for the lot with one of the burrow's fat hens and kept them for a joke on any uppity person who proved deserving. When Malfoy had begun his sneering, Robin had simply given the eggs a quick, accurate lob. Garden goblin hoe-digging and precise aim, and the arrogant boy was reduced to a blotched, stinking heap under a borrowed coat. They spent the rest of the afternoon quietly in the last compartment of car 5972, Robin contentedly finishing his toast, Ron holding a dozing Scabbers, and Harry watching the countryside slide by. The villainous trio of Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle would think twice before swaggering into their carriage again. When evening fell, a black curtain drew across the world outside. The train began to slow. Toot, 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 toot. It sounded its arrival warning. The carriages gave a final shudder, and the compartment doors swung open. Students who had already changed into their plain black robes stepped out first, shouldering trunks and trunks' toes as they pushed and jostled. The first years followed the older students onto a narrow, dim platform. A biting wind made them shiver. "It's only September 1st, and it's freezing already. How will anyone survive winter?" A small blonde girl with blue eyes complained, shivering in her hood. Her tall companion moved to comfort her when, all at once, a bright, warm yellow light flooded the entire platform. 15. Arriving at Hogwarts. "New students, first years, follow me." A rough, hoarse voice rang out behind the little group. Only then did everyone notice it wasn't a street lamp glowing behind him, but an oil lamp, held by a half-giant. As people pressed forward, Hagrid, the bearded half-giant, grinned and called over his shoulder, "Come on, keep up. Don't mind the older students. They take a different way. Watch your step and keep your things safe. It's very dark. If you lose something, it'll be hard to find." No sooner had Hagrid finished than a plaintive, upset wail rose from the crowd. "Wah! My toad, wah!" "Now, don't cry," Hagrid rumbled. "Tell me what you've lost." Neville was sobbing so hard he couldn't form a proper sentence. From the back of the crowd, a small, determined voice called out and waved an arm to get Hagrid's attention. "It's not me, Neville's toad. I told him over and over not to trust those divination predictions, but he wouldn't listen. Toads don't just come back by themselves. You have to go look for them." A little girl with thick, bushy brown hair and earnest brown eyes had her chin high as she spoke. The toad's croaking suddenly seemed very loud in reply. Hagrid bent, threaded his way through the press of bodies, scooped up a hopping toad that was trying to descend the slope, and held it out. "Here, this your toad, son. Yes, yes, that's him. Thank you." Neville took the toad back, relieved and wide-eyed. Hagrid ruffled his hair. "Keep a proper eye on him now. If you lose him again, he'll be much harder to find. There's a lot of Hogwarts that hasn't been explored yet." Okay, Neville sniffed. When the little interruption ended, Hagrid led the way again, waving his great arm. Everyone followed him down the slope, slipping and crunching over the dark path. At the bottom lay a black lake. A dozen small wooden boats were moored along the shore. On the far bank, a towering, spired castle rose into the night, its many windows glowing a warm yellow. "All here? We'll be taking boats across. One boat holds 4. Children, get in!" Robin, Ron, and Harry climbed into one boat, and Hermione followed. As the enchanted wooden boat set off, Hermione kept glancing at the lightning-shaped scar on Harry's forehead, obviously wanting to speak but hesitating. The lake was very dark and unnervingly quiet. They had to duck on occasion when the cliffs loomed close. She sighed and let her eyes travel instead to the vast castle soaring above them. The boat slipped past sheer rock, through a curtain of hanging ivy, and into a hidden, wide entrance. After drifting along a dark tunnel, they reached an underground landing. "We're at the dock. Everyone out. Take your luggage, and don't leave anything behind." Once every first year had disembarked, Hagrid checked the empty boats to make sure no personal items were left, and then began to lead the newcomers uphill. In a few minutes, they reached a broad, grassy terrace. They climbed a short flight of stone steps to a huge oak door. Thump, thump, thump! Hagrid raised his massive fist and knocked in 3 heavy blows. Robin guessed it was the signal they and the castle folk had agreed upon. The door creaked open and a tall witch appeared, dressed in emerald robes with a pointed hat set at a jaunty angle over her black hair, which was twisted into a tight bun. Her eyes were a little hooded and her lips pressed firmly together. She gave the impression of someone who didn't suffer fools gladly. Many of the students stared and felt a bit intimidated. Robin, however, thought differently. Strict as Professor Minerva McGonagall looked, no doubt the sort to be stern about lost house points, she also struck him as fair and responsible, someone who would teach properly to anyone eager to learn. Hagrid announced loudly, "Professor McGonagall, all the first-year new students are here." "Thank you, Hagrid. Leave them to me. You may go inside and take a seat." "All right, I'll go in after the children." Professor McGonagall pulled the door wide and led the new students into the castle. The entrance hall was vast, the stone walls lit with torches, much like Gringotts. From a doorway on the right came laughter and noise. No doubt the great hall, where meals and feasts were held, but McGonagall did not bring them there. Instead, she led them into a smaller, empty room, stood in the center, and spoke in a brisk, clipped tone. "Welcome to Hogwarts. The start of term feast will begin soon," she said. "Before you eat, however, there will be a sorting ceremony to determine which house you will join. There are 4 houses: Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. Each house has its own proud history and has produced witches and wizards whose names are known throughout the wizarding world. Whatever house you are placed in, you will have access to excellent magical instruction. During your time here, your house will gain points for good deeds and lose points for rule breaking. At the end of the year, the house with the most points will win the House Cup, a very great honor. Line up in 3 rows and straighten your robes. In 5 minutes, I will collect you." When McGonagall left, the first years erupted into nervous chatter, some fretting over what the sorting might involve, some loudly insisting they didn't want to be put in Slytherin, and others trying to recall things from the books they'd read. 5 minutes passed quickly, and McGonagall returned, instructed the first row to go ahead, then the second, and led them through the doors into the Great Hall. Even more magnificent than the entrance hall, the Great Hall took Robin's breath away. The ceiling above was enchanted to look just like the night sky, stars twinkling as if seen from outdoors. Floating candles hovered in midair above the 4 long house tables, their flames throwing a warm light across the room. On a raised platform at the front stood a long table for the staff. Professor McGonagall led the first years to the staff table and made them stand in a long line facing the assembled older students. Hundreds of pairs of eyes watched them intently. Over the 4 long tables drifted a dozen or so pale, translucent ghosts who floated and occasionally made soft whistles and jokes at the newcomers' expense. The sorting ceremony was about to begin. 16, being sorted by the sorting hat. Professor McGonagall brought out a small 4-legged stool and a battered, pointed wizard's hat. Oh my, the legendary sorting hat. Robin squinted at it. The hat was ancient. Its black velvet had faded to gray, with darker patches and deep creases where the lining had long since worn away. As Robin counted the folds, the hat suddenly wiggled. A crease near the brim split open into a wide mouth, and the hat began to sing, its voice croaky and oddly metallic. I am the sorting hat of Hogwarts. Put me on and try me. I will tell you which house you belong to. Gryffindor for the brave, courageous, and chivalrous. Hufflepuff for the just, loyal, patient, and honest. Ravenclaw for the wise and learned. Slytherin for those who seek power and crave achievement. I am a hat with thoughts of my own. Robin, do you realize you're completely off-key? And that wheezy, tractor-like voice is ruining my eardrums. Apart from Robin, everyone in the Great Hall seemed to love the song. There was applause from the 4 long house tables. The sorting hat bobbed its tip in thanks. After the clapping died down, Professor McGonagall stepped forward and unrolled a parchment. New students, she said, your names are written here, in alphabetical order by surname. When I call your name, come up, sit on the stool, put on the sorting hat, and await its decision. First up. The first to be called was Hannah Abbott, the one nicknamed the Iron Hat King. In under 3 seconds, the hat bellowed Hufflepuff. Next came Susan Bones, Hufflepuff. Terry Boot, Ravenclaw. Mandy Brocklehurst, Ravenclaw. Lavender Brown, Gryffindor. Hermione took her seat at the Gryffindor table, and Professor McGonagall read the next name. Robin Lestrange. Robin stepped forward and almost reflexively tapped the brim of the hat a few times as he set it on his head. Hiss, so itchy, very itchy. An interesting fellow has arrived, the hat muttered, wriggling where Robin had touched it. Need me to scratch it? Robin offered. No, business first, the hat snapped. Relax your mind. Let me see where you should be sorted. The sorting hat straightened itself and fell into a thoughtful silence. 1 minute passed. 3 minutes. 5. The hat stayed motionless, like it had fallen into some deep deliberation. New students and older ones alike craned their necks. A silence like a lonely grave settled over the hall. Robin felt every pair of eyes drilling into him. The scrutiny made him tense. If you're asleep, big bro, don't, someone whispered. Sleep? Who said I was sleeping? The hat muttered, offended. If it wasn't asleep, could its magic be failing? Robin finally asked. Sorting hat, have you decided yet? Ah, well, Mr. Robin Lestrange, before I make the formal decision, answer me one question. Ask. Do you have a brainstem? Robin blinked. Was he being insulted by a hat? The sorting hat shivered and hurried to explain. I didn't mean offense. I sense your mind is blank. I can't read anything to sort you. You've studied occlumency, haven't you? Occlumency, the art of blocking or hiding one's thoughts from legilimency. Basic occlumency can clear or shield memories and emotions. Advanced occlumency can scramble and mislead a legilimens. Robin only knew a few simple spells. He'd never studied occlumency. No, he said, I haven't. You really haven't? The hat asked, incredulous. Well, if you can't be read, choose for yourself. I haven't studied it, Robin repeated. The hat slumped a little on his head. Fine. Which house do you want? Besides learning magic, Robin had one priority at Hogwarts, stuffing magical creatures into the giant Rubik's Cube. Hufflepuff was too crowded, Ravenclaw overcautious and conspiratorial, Slytherin too cold and contemptuous. Gryffindor was where the trio of troublemakers sat, and that suited his plans. Gryffindor, he said. Are you sure? The Hat asked. Certain. Very well. Gryffindor, the Hat shouted, and Robin stepped forward amid applause. The Weasley twins were already calling across the table. Aha! From the moment you jabbed that ghoul's arm with a stick, we knew you'd be a Gryffindor. And the sticky, stringy slime all over Ron's bed. Disgusting! Robin, you're a prank master. Thanks, but you didn't have to announce my shameful secrets on my first day. Robin protested as he found an empty seat and sat down. Neville Longbottom was called next. He took a few nervous steps, tripped, and landed face first. The Hat cried Gryffindor while still on his head, and Neville ran to the Gryffindor table, cheeks blazing, to return the hat amid laughter. Then Draco Malfoy, who went to Slytherin, followed by Moon, Parkinson, Patil, Sally Ann, Harry, Lisa, Ron, and Blaze. 17. Idiot. Crying. Rubbish. Screw. That's great. We're in the same house. We can go to classes, eat, and do homework together from now on. Ron crowed as he took his seat. Do homework together, are you sure? Robin raised an eyebrow. Ron was quick at picking things up when he bothered to study. Well, sometimes I'll need to borrow your ideas, Robin. Whenever I think about homework, I get a headache. No, you don't. Ron opened his mouth to argue and make excuses, but suddenly the chatter in the Great Hall died away until you could have heard a pin drop. He followed everyone's gaze to the high table where a white-bearded man had risen. Headmaster Albus Dumbledore stood smiling, arms spread. Welcome, welcome everyone, from all over the world to Hogwarts, to begin a new school year. Welcome. Before we start the feast, a few words. Nitwit, blubber, oddment, tweak, Dumbledore called, still smiling. But I don't want to hear those words from any of you this year. He let the words hang a moment, then waved his hand. All right then, let the feast begin. With a flick of his wrist, the high table and the long student tables filled with food. Pork chops, grilled steaks, sausages, fried chicken cutlets, mashed potatoes and chips, puddings, juices, cakes, something for even the fussiest eater. Robin, do you know what nitwit, blubber, oddment, and tweak mean? Harry asked, ducking to avoid nearly headless Nick drifting past. Robin chewed and talked around a mouthful. I know, they're jibes about the houses. Ravenclaw thinks anyone who isn't Ravenclaw is a nitwit. Gryffindors are brave and sometimes think others are cowardly. Blubber. Slytherins often come from old pure-blood families and look down on the rest. Oddment. Hufflepuffs are honest and hard-working and expect others to straighten up. Tweak. Harry was a little stunned. He hadn't expected Dumbledore's nonsense words to have those meanings. But those are old prejudices. Apart from Slytherin, hardly anyone still holds to them. Robin resumed stuffing himself. The food after the long trip was irresistible. A few moments later, a pained groan came from the high table. Harry frowned and followed the others' looks. Severus Snape, tall, gaunt, and sallow, was watching the small man in the purple turban with a cold, calculating stare. The man in the turban was Professor Quirrell, and Harry noticed something else too, an odd, shrinking shape clinging to the back of the turban. He felt a chill. Robin, do you know the wizard standing opposite Professor Quirrell? Harry asked quietly. He had the uneasy feeling the man disliked him, perhaps wanted him gone from Hogwarts. Severus Snape, Robin said. Potions professor. I hear he's into dark arts research. Dark arts? Harry whispered, turning his face away. Don't worry, Robin said comfortingly. Professor Snape's faults are his surly manner, strictness, protective attitude toward his own, liking to punish, and being petty occasionally. I heard Fred say that Professor Snape really... Robin, with a huge mouthful of chicken, tried to join the conversation, but chewed on. Soon the plates and bowls on the long tables were cleared away. The welcome feast was over. Dumbledore, back in his seat at the high table, gave a few cautions, led the school in the Hogwarts song, and dismissed them. Robin, Harry, and Ron went with the rest of the Gryffindors out of the Great Hall, up the marble staircase, and through corridor after corridor until they stood before the portrait of the fat lady in a pink dress. Password, the fat lady asked. Dragon scum, Percy the prefect called. Correct, the fat lady said, yawning and rocking her frame aside to reveal a round hole. One at a time, please. Don't push. Under Percy's direction, the students filed through. Neville, a bit round and clumsy, needed help from two people to get through. Behind the portrait was a large, cozy room with armchairs and roaring fireplaces, the Gryffindor common room. "Girls to that door! Boys, follow me!" Percy shouted. A spiral staircase waited beyond the door. The boys' dormitories were up in the tower. Robin found their dormitory by the list posted. 3 4-poster beds draped in dark red velvet stood in the room. Suitcases were piled in a corner. Robin's snowy owl, Dapang, and Hedwig were not there. All the owls had been taken to the owlery to be cared for. Of the 3 beds, 2 sat beneath the windows and 1 against the wall. Ron chose the one against the wall. Robin and Harry took the 2 by the windows. They were exhausted and after washing fell straight into bed. The next morning in the Great Hall, the deans of the 4 houses entered from the foyer, handed out timetables, and went back out. Robin unfolded his and studied it carefully. Monday morning, History of Magic, 2 periods. Afternoon, Transfiguration. Tuesday morning, Herbology Charms. Afternoon, Herbology. Wednesday, morning, Defense Against the Dark Arts. Afternoon, Transfiguration. Evening, Astronomy. Thursday, morning, Charms, Herbology. Afternoon, Defense Against the Dark Arts. Friday morning, Potions, 2 periods. Not too crowded, he thought. "Hi, hello, my name's Hermione Granger. I'm a first year in your house," a girl with bushy hair announced, balancing several heavy books in one arm. "Hello, Harry. Harry Potter," he said, feeling a little flustered. Hermione held her chin high when she spoke. Harry thought if she were any taller, she'd be looking down her nose at everyone. "You know what? Before term started, I read my first-year textbooks at least 3 times. I even practiced a few simple spells in my attic. I only meant to get a little practice in, but they actually worked. Harry, from now on, we can go to the library together and swap notes on magic." Robin tore off a large piece of toast. Hermione, you probably don't know this, but Harry's enthusiasm for studying is no higher than Ron's. Swap notes? Go to the library?" Harry stammered, then gave a secret little wink, silently appealing to his roommates who were watching the scene unfold. Robin finished the toast in a few big bites, grabbed a textbook from the table, stood, and announced, "Excuse me, I don't want to be late for first period." "Right, can't be late. Ron, let's go," Harry said. "Oh, okay. Ron rose, a drumstick in one hand and books in the other. He was about to leave when Hermione reached out and seized the one who was leading the conversation. "Do you know Bathilda Bagshot? Do you know what an animagus is? Have you read Newt Scamander's Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them? Have you tried brewing potions by yourself?" Hermione was getting frantic, showing off her knowledge to get attention. Robin smirked. "Miss Granger, I'm under no obligation to answer all your questions, but I should remind you that first year's brewing potions unsupervised is a serious violation. You need a professor's permission." Seeing the little girl's face flush with anger felt oddly refreshing to Robin. "Harry, Ron, let's go!" "Stop! What's your name?" Hermione demanded. Hermione had been so excited the night before at the sorting that she hadn't paid attention to everything Professor McGonagall called out. Robin raised an eyebrow and feigned shock. "Ah, you don't know my name? Didn't you give me a nickname? Bad guy?" "It's you, the one who made up lies to trick Neville," Hermione exclaimed. "The made-up lies? You mean the toad Hagrid caught last night wasn't Neville's?" "Yes, it's mine. See that red spot at the corner of its mouth? Uncle Algy said he bought the toad because of that red spot." Neville held his toad and looked at Robin with gratitude and admiration. "You? Humph," he stammered. Hermione puffed her cheeks in anger like a mother hen whose chick had been bullied and stormed out of the Great Hall. "She seems angry," Harry observed, pushing his glasses up. "Clever, bookish, diligent, stubborn, and brave. She'd once had her front teeth knocked out in a scuffle with Malfoy in her 4th year. Madame Pomfrey had found a way to fix them. Since then, the Gryffindor know-it-all had become something of a school goddess, linchpin of logic, and the sort of person who loved to show off what she knew. She loved lecturing, loved taking charge, and could be as sharp as a little chili pepper. Robin teased Hermione partly to blunt those sharp edges, and partly because he enjoyed poking at someone who made a fuss, like prodding a spicy pepper to see it flail harmlessly. It was deliciously satisfying. "Harry, don't be a doormat. Between making others angry and making yourself miserable, I'll pick the former every time." "Exactly," Ron agreed. "Look at her, so superior. I reckon the Sorting Hat made a mistake. She should have landed in Slytherin, the House of Dark Wizards. Enough of this, Harry said. Come on, I don't want to be late. They snatched up their books and clattered upstairs. Monday morning brought 2 straight History of Magic lessons. Professor Binns had a singular way of teaching. Head bowed, voice like an old machine sputtering, reading the textbook word for word until students nodded off. Some were bold enough to sleep at their desks on the very first day, Ron included. Harry had tried waking him, but Ron would stir for barely 10 seconds before collapsing back. After the 7th or 8th attempt, Harry gave up and fell asleep too. There was, however, a spectacle in Binns's entry. He didn't use the classroom door. He came through the blackboard, and a dusty, mushroom-shaped head emerged with a creak that startled Robin as if it were a scene from a horror film. A girl in the front row, with pearl-rimmed glasses, was so scared she sobbed for several minutes. When history ended, students streamed down to the Great Hall. 2/3 of them looked dazed and yawned openly. Tsk! Young people, Robin thought. If McGonagall had been the one lecturing, she'd have made every sleepy student stand in the back and stay upright until they paid attention. Afternoon brought transfiguration. Tap! Tap! Professor McGonagall's footsteps cut through the chatter as she paced the aisles, lips pressed tight, her stride like a drum roll. She climbed the podium and swept her sharp gaze over the room. Among the subjects new students take, transfiguration is the most dangerous and complex, she said. If any of you cause trouble or disrupt my class, not only will I deduct house points, I will expel you and forbid you from ever attending my lessons again. In my classroom, you will follow my rules. Consider yourselves warned. She paused, narrowed her eyes, and then, with a small flick of her wand, turned the podium into a pink piglet. Oink! Oink! The piglet scampered around the desks and then hopped back onto the podium. The stern, silent air broke into scattered surprise and delighted laughter. McGonagall looked satisfied, tapped her wand, and the piglet became a desk again. Transfiguration turns one thing into another, inanimate things into living creatures, and vice versa. To succeed, you must find a link between the objects. Take the podium. If its wood is applewood and pigs eat apples, then apple is the link between podium and pig. Once you find the link, you must form a vivid image of the target in your mind. The clearer, the better. Then take your wand, channel a small amount of magic, and firmly speak the transfiguration incantation. Professor Minerva McGonagall explained the essentials with her usual stern precision as the first years furiously scribbled notes. After the theory, she handed each student a match and set them their first practical task: transform the match into an iron needle. 19. First cast of transfiguration. Robin frowned at the red-tipped matchstick on the desk, turning over in his mind how a match could possibly become an iron needle. Shape, function, price, material. Yes, material. An iron needle, whether smelted from ore or hammered from a rod, could never be separated from fire. A wooden match, struck against its box, ignited. The whole stick could be consumed by flame. Fire was the link between the match and the needle. He pictured an iron needle in precise detail, a sharp tip, a smooth round shaft, an oval eye at the head. When the mental image of the needle was as vivid as he could make it, he drew magic into his wand, aimed at the match, and, with steady determination, spoke the incantation. There was a pop. On the desk, the red-headed, white-tailed matchstick vanished, and in its place lay a gleaming needle, cold to the eye. "Oh my goodness, Robin! You did it on your first try. This is terrifying." Ron's shout drew Professor McGonagall's attention. She walked over to Robin's desk, picked up the needle, and examined it carefully. Elegant lines, hard texture, smooth eye, sharp point. Acceptable, Mr. Lestrange. Try to change this iron needle back into a match. Yes, Professor McGonagall. The second time felt easier than the first. Robin, who had long been coddled by the prefects more than nervous, held the needle on the desk, fixed his mind on the match, and spoke the spell. With a soft whoosh, the needle became the matchstick again. Students craned forward, astonished. Whispers spread through the room like wildfire. Professor McGonagall awarded 5 house points to Gryffindor. The classroom erupted. Everyone leaned in, trading tips on how to perform transfiguration successfully. House points were coveted. McGonagall's stern expression quickly quieted them. You are wizards and witches. Learn to be calm. Avoid pride and impatience. There will be other chances to earn points. Continue practicing, she added. Always find the connection between the two objects and form a clear mental image of the target. The more concrete the image, the better your chance of success. Her final words sounded like the key points a university lecturer would emphasize before an exam. Yet, aside from Robin and Hermione, no one else managed to change their matchsticks. After class, Hermione stopped the group again, only this time she turned to Robin. Lavender said your name is Robin Lestrange. Honestly, her taste in attractive, well-mannered members of the opposite sex is better than her grasp of transfiguration. Robin, only you and I succeeded just now. Wouldn't it make sense for us to be study partners? We could help each other. Robin's private thought, study partners won't work, but bed partners might be worth considering. On a cold weekend, cuddling a small warm body is tempting. He coughed and kept that to himself. Miss Granger, I like to study, but I don't want someone to supervise me. You can form a study group with your roommates. You know Lavender and Parvati well, don't you? Hermione, very concerned with appearances and not wanting her roommates to think she'd been turned down, tried to recover. Forget it. With an extra person, I'd have to work around their schedule. I can be top of the year studying alone. Humph. She spun around with a huff and found the doorway empty. Not Lavender and Parvati, not even a shadow. Hermione realized she'd been tricked. She glared at Robin with clenched teeth and stormed out, furious. She's angry again, Ron said. Robin, unruffled, hugged his textbook and walked toward the door with Ron and Harry close behind. He knew Hermione's temper well enough. If someone provoked her twice in one day, she'd be looking for payback. He had expected retaliation sooner or later. He'd heard stories of Hermione flying into a rage over Malfoy and leaving him with a bleeding nose, but he hadn't expected it to come so quickly. The next morning, first period herbology in the greenhouses, Professor Sprout, short, round, and wearing a patched old hat, was explaining white dittany. All of you, pay attention. Don't whisper and don't draw in your notebooks yet. This is in your textbooks and in the library too. She gestured at a pot. White dittany is a plant with strong healing and restorative properties. Eaten raw, it can close superficial wounds in minutes. If you extract it into an essence, its efficacy increases. For a werewolf bite, you can cut the white dittany into fine shreds, mix it with very pure silver powder, and apply it to the wound to prevent fatal blood loss. Robin remembered the moment in 1997 when the Golden Trio apparated out of the Ministry. Ron had been splinched, and Hermione had used dittany essence to treat him. Green steam had whirled up, and when it cleared, the bleeding had stopped and new skin had covered the wound. The potency of the essence had been undeniable. To Robin's eye, the plant looked like a common succulent, dark purple stems and layers of thick, bright green, fleshy leaves that felt cool to the touch. The smell was the same too, unremarkable. Among the first years leaned forward, listening. Robin's small stir and faintly disdainful expression caught Professor Sprout's eye. She glanced across at him, noticing there was no name tag hiding his features this time. Mr. Robin Lestrange, she asked gently, what were you just planning to do to the white dittany in that pot? Pomona Sprout was kindly and optimistic. She wasn't angry about inattentive students, but she was genuinely curious about his actions. 20. Hermione's counterattack. I know, Professor. I know what he wanted to do. Hermione shot her hand up, standing on tiptoe and lifting her chin to make sure Professor Sprout looked her way. Sprout glanced at her but didn't explicitly call on her. Hermione, however, took the look as permission and blurted out, he wants to eat white dittany raw. Robin, are you hurt anywhere? Ron asked quietly. Robin spotted the girl opposite him, Hermione, pouting and raising an eyebrow with a decidedly haughty air. He shook his head with an amused smile. She's talking nonsense. Do you believe her? Yeah. How could you listen to a hothead? Ron added. In barely 2 days, Hermione had already been tagged a hothead by Ron. Professor Sprout didn't look convinced by Hermione's outburst either. Hermione Granger, thank you for your answer. However, next time, wait for my instruction before you speak. Robin, what were you trying to do with the white dittany in the pot? Hermione's smug expression vanished. Her face flushed, but not with embarrassment. She was suddenly angry. She tried to cover herself. Professor, When I was traveling with my parents, I saw a plant that looked very similar to white dittany in a yellow rock canyon. I was just observing the differences between the two. Professor Sprout nodded. I see. What you probably saw was rock lovegrass. It resembles white dittany in appearance, smell, and some effects, but there are differences. For example, rock lovegrass only grows on canyon cliffs. White dittany prefers nutrient-rich red soil. If you snap off a leaf, the sap of rock lovegrass is milky white, while white dittany's sap is translucent. Sprout used that as a springboard for some extra herbology lore, and everyone listened attentively until she gave the class their practical task. Work in pairs, inject nutrient solution into the pots, and remove the red spiders from the white dittany. Before Ron could even turn and ask Hermione to be his partner, Sprout called out the pairings. Predictably, Hermione and Robin were paired. Robin guessed Sprout had arranged partners to smooth over the tension she'd noticed between them. Hermione, however, saw an opportunity for payback. With theatrical innocence, she shoved an empty rubber tube into a beaker that still held half the dark brown, pungent nutrient solution, squeezed, and sent a fine spray right across Robin's robes. Sorry, it was my fault. I should have held the tube tighter, she said, blinking as if alarmed by her own clumsiness. Robin's robes were splattered with the nutrient solution. He let out a bark of mock outrage that quickly turned into laughter. It's fine. Just clean it up. That solution's mixed with various potions. It's very clean. If I'd been splashed with nutrient-rich soil made from fermented dragon dung, goat dung, chicken dung, and other animal droppings, then I'd have to ask Professor McGonagall for permission to go to Hogsmeade. Hermione frowned at the red soil in the pot, disappointed that her prank couldn't be repeated. Can you just stare at the red spiders and make them go away then? Robin teased, as he injected nutrient solution into the pot with the rubber tube. Hermione's eyes flashed. She gritted her teeth, but for now had to content herself with the tweezers. She pinched the red spiders one by one with exaggerated precision, partly to be useful, partly to vent. Because there were 2 morning classes, Sprout wrapped up the practical with a few summary points and dismissed the first years early. As the others left, Sprout picked up a bag of nutrient-rich soil and started toward the door. Robin, why are you still here? She asked when she noticed him lingering. My robes got splashed, he said. Do you have a detergent for nutrient solution? Sprout looked him over, then pulled her wand from her hat, flicked her wrist, and drew a quick reverse S in the air. Scourgify! Invisible currents washed over Robin's robes and whisked the stains away, depositing them neatly into the trash. He checked his robes carefully and, seeing them clean, said, Thank you, Professor. It's nothing, just a flick. Now go back to the castle. Professor Flitwick isn't as easygoing as I am. Sprout smiled and hurried off. Robin watched her go and then hesitated, glancing toward a pile of withered herbs in the corner. Professor, may I? He began. Sprout followed his look. Those herbs withered before they matured. Their medicinal and toxic properties are unreliable. They can't be used as potion ingredients. I know, Robin said. I haven't even started potion class yet. I don't plan to brew with them. I just want to study why they withered and what happens to them when they dry. There was a quiet earnestness in his black eyes that softened Sprout. She sighed and relented. All right, you can take them. They're useless to me, but they might help you learn. Promise me one thing. Never use these untested withered herbs to make any potions. I promise, Professor. You don't need to ask me next time. Come to the first greenhouse and take what you need. Thank you. Robin moved to the corner and, almost without thinking, triggered the little magical Rubik's Cube he carried, mentally activating its scanning function. In an instant, a dozen of the withered specimens glowed faintly with magic values between 1 and 100. The rest probably had attributes too low to display. The scan lasted only 10 seconds, but for now, 10 seconds was more than enough.